Got it.
And welcome, family, to another wonderful, edutainment, infotainment edition of We All Be TV, News-Free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm your host for this empowerment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the artivist. And unless you've been living under a rock or in isolation for the last whatever, y'all know that this weekend, or I guess this is the centennial acknowledgement weekend of the Black Wall Street massacre that happened, or race massacre that happened back in 1921. It actually happened May 31st through June 1st, 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood community, also known as Black Wall Street. It was given that term by Booker T. Washington when he visited Tulsa. It's like Black Wall Street, and then stuck. And over 300 Black lives lost, probably more than that, actually, probably way up beyond 300. And we given that number by the American Red Cross, actually gave us that number, whereas other sources listed as low as 36 lives lost, Black lives lost. But you had 35 city blocks of Black excellence destroyed in a little bit over a day. Black wealth under attack, has always been under attack in this system. When Black wealth serves Black people, it has always been under attack. Never forget. It was amazing going down to Tulsa. Like, I was in the heart, in the epicenter of Black Wall Street when I was doing the little trumpet performance. And it's an amazing experience to be there, ground zero, to talk to the residents, the longtime residents who ancestors, or they are the descendants of Black Wall Street survivors. So many stories. Like I told y'all, check out that PBS documentary, the American Experience documentary called Going Back to T-Town that came out in 1993. They actually interviewed the survivors of the Black Wall Street Massacre. Because what people don't know is that actually Black Wall Street made a comeback after that horrible incident back in 1921. By the 1930s, it was known as probably the most powerful Black business district in the country. That's who we are as Black people. We are very resilient, resourceful, and a prideful people. And speaking of resilience and resourcefulness and being prideful and honorable, I had a chance to talk to the brother y'all know as Kwame Brown, Kwame the Destroyer, and the Builder. I had talked to him actually earlier today. I want to give a shout out to Judge Joe Brown for making it happen. I know some of y'all is interested. I didn't know. I saw the great interview that he did with Kwame on Kwame's platform. And I thought I enjoyed it. You know, I've been interviewing Judge since 2014. So I heard some of the stuff. I heard most of that stuff, all of that stuff actually, that Judge said on Kwame's platform. And I know some of y'all was giving him a hard time for not shouting me out. You know, it is what it is. I don't take no personal thing. But Judge, you know, he looked out for a brother. He looked out for a brother. He put in a good word with Brother Kwame for me. And I had a chance to talk to this brother earlier today. 10 minutes, like it was 20 minutes. I like what I heard from him. Quite frankly, I think he's a very honest guy, but I want to thank people that were concerned who was like, hey man, Judge, you didn't call our brother wrong. Brother, Judge looking out for the ladies. Judge in the house, Judge in the house. He look out for me. He's going to be on the show once he get this StreamYard situation worked out. But I want to tell the people, thank you all for tagging me, like Brother DeJuan Brown. Thank you for the shout out. Sister Mimi, thank you so much for what you do and your support, and everybody else who probably raised concern about me not being shout out by the judge. I appreciate that. And the judge came through. And so don't be surprised if you see Kwame Brown grace the We All Be universe or multiverse or whatever very soon. So we're gonna get Brother Kwame. And actually I told Brother Kwame, he reminded me of my great-grandfather. Now I know I say my paternal grandmother's father, because sometimes I call him paternal great-grandfather. I don't know if that's the right terminology. I'm learning as y'all learn. So I'm gonna start saying my paternal grandmother's father. Cause you get like even after the third cousin, you like, this is my first cousin, my second cousin, my third cousin. I get confused after the third cousin. I get all twisted, lost in the sauce. But please forgive me. I'm gonna start clarifying it more like, oh, that's my paternal grandmother's father, who was also my great-grandfather. But I told him, man, you look like him, and you sound like, to me, what he would sound like if I could hear him speak. Maybe without all the nigga and all that other stuff, but maybe so, because he is from Carolina. He's from the Low Country. He was from Greenville. So I don't know. He started laughing at that, whatever. He was cool with it, but I gave him his props. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully we could build. And I actually told him you should run for governor of Georgia. He said, I never thought about that. I said, why not? Because when Black men are put in positions of leadership, it tends to benefit the rest of the race. And I explained to him the reason why I said that. I look at Atlanta. Atlanta is going through some issues right now because they've been living off the past glories of Black men doing their job, of providing a vision and a plan of action for people. So now is the time to pay the piper. Now it's time. You can't live off that. It's an expiration date on those type of things, on them past glories. But while I was telling him that he's a personification of masculinity, not just Black manhood, but this humanity's manhood. And I said, it's interesting. I started noticing you around the time of Malcolm X's birthday. Malcolm's birthday was on May the 19th. And I told him, you kind of ascended around that time. You, like Malcolm, knew how to use the media. You know how to leverage the media to tell your stories, to amplify your message. You are 39, just like Malcolm was when he was assassinated, but he was our manhood, because in death, they can't kill him. He's bulletproof in death. They killed him one time in life before his family, but in death, he's bulletproof. So I'm saying I just wanted to encourage that brother in his journey to do what it do, and know that we love him madly. And I just heard from the judge, he's trying to get on. He don't like the StreamYard. He just trying to get on. He hates StreamYard because of all the stuff he got to do. He got to do a lot of gymnastics to get on StreamYards. So I'm just holding down the fort till you get here. But like I said, Judge is the reason why I got connected with Kwame. And Kwame knew who I was. Kind of, he said, yo, the brother said, Judge said you're a sharp brother. And then he was telling me stuff like he interviewed Devin George. And I'm a Laker fan. I know who Devin George is. You know what I'm saying? And basically, like I told Kwame, I said, look, Kwame, people thinking that you're giving them junk food. You lure the people in with the junk food. Once you set them at the table, you give them the healthy stuff, the green, the leafy greens, and all that, the spinach. You lured us in with the junk food, but you switch it up at the table. Once the people get to the table on this platform, you getting that healthy food. And like I said, it's like being like it's like being like the mailman. Your mailman could be a crackhead, but as long as your mailman deliver your mail, I don't give a damn if he's a crackhead, because it's not about the messenger. It's about the message. It's not about the messenger. It's about the message. It's not about the mailman. It's about the mail. It's not about the mailman. It's about the mail. So Judge is trying to get in, but man, it's like we was on the phone for longer than 10 minutes. But I listened to his voice. I said, brother, you like a general, because it's like you the 48 laws of power personified. Like you've been studying the art of war for the last 20 years. And I look forward to see how he's going to pivot. But check out the interview he did on Bus Life with Devin George. I think he got uploaded to his YouTube channel. And also he said they did an Instagram live, I think, and he uploaded to his YouTube channel. But Devin George, them guys doing real stuff. It reminds me, I had a chance to interview the Honorable Curtis McClinton. He's a friend. I mean, he's the father of a woman I had a crush on in college. His beautiful sister from Kansas City. Her father is a football legend in Kansas City. He was the first football player to score a touchdown for the American Football League, which is now known as the AFC, in the first Super Bowl. He actually won Kansas City's first Super Bowl. He helped win it. His coach was the legendary Hank Stram. This is Curtis McClinton. He was a fullback for the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day. He also, if you look at that famous picture about all them black athletes supporting Muhammad Ali, like you had like, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell, a lot of prominent black athletes. They was at a press conference and they was all gathered around, huddle around Muhammad Ali for support. Curtis McClinton is standing right behind, I think, Muhammad Ali, or he's right behind them. So he was a part of Jim Brown's economic organization. When Jim Brown would try to invest into the economic infrastructure of the black community, like these cats, they used to doing things. It's like Kwame is like a throwback to that era where black athletes wasn't that far removed from the working class or average citizen, from working class America. Because a lot of them athletes back in the day were not making millions of dollars like they do now. They had to get summer jobs, and some of them were going to school while they was in the NFL. Ms. Curtis McClinton, he has his doctorate. He's a very brilliant man, accomplished opera singer. But he was telling me about the times he would work with Jim Brown and his economic empowerment organization back in the day that he had. And Kwame got that mindset. He's an old soul. He has that mindset of the throwback, of wanting not to be the leader of said community, but to develop and create a community of leaders. It's like it reminds me of the time when I read about, you know, A.L.L Baker, the great A.L.L Baker, who really was a key strategist of the movement. She helped organize the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as well as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She was one of them people. She was used to get into with Dr. Martin Luther King. They used to have debates. You know, Snick had a nickname for Dr. King. They call him, "Oh, the Lord is coming. The Lord is coming." So Dr. King believed that it took a leader to lead the people. Well, Ella believed that you must create a village of leaders to lead themselves. So they used to have a back and forth about that stuff. And what I want to encourage our people, like I've been telling you, got to develop your own code. Like Kwame, I told him, like Kwame knows that he wants to develop leaders, not to be the leader, but he want to be in a community of leaders, especially black men. We ain't going nowhere without black men being men. And like I said, Brother Kwame, you are providing that substance in the gap, that you are encouraging boys to want to choose to be men. Let me make this clear. We have a lot of males, but we do not have a lot of men. Now, I heard what I'm aware of the things that D-Wade said, that he's not the leader of his household. And that makes a lot of sense. You see the results of when a man do not want to be a man in terms of accepting accountability for their own home. You see what goes on. And like I told Brother Kwame, it was fascinating because like we've been talking for a long time. Like I known him for a while. I said black men are the most envied, the most admired, the most hated men on the planet, because we set the trends. We are personification of excellence, of masculinity when we want to be, and we're a threat. And I mentioned Jim Brown, and I know I talked to Judge about this. I remember looking at Raquel Welch, that beautiful, the beautiful actress from back in the day. I think her and Jim Brown did the first interracial sex scene in Hollywood history or something like that. But she was saying that Jim Brown would never be a great actor because he was too much of a man. He was too manly to be an actor, because in order to be a great actor or artist, you got to have a certain sensitivity, not just women, but men. You got to have a certain sensitivity to do those type of things, right? But Jim Brown was just a man. It's like, even, man, that movie, that sci-fi B movie type of thing with Mars Attack. I love When Mars Attack, right? They came out back in the mid-90s, I think, when Mars Attack. Is that the right? It's Tim Burton's movie. And Jim Brown, like the Martians was just shooting up everybody, just killing and destroying. But the Martians wanted to prove a point, right? Instead of trying to shoot Jim Brown said, "Fight me like a man." He was posing like Jack Johnson and stuff. He had the bald head. And the Martian, I'm gonna fight this because he's a man. I ain't gonna shoot him down like a dog or whatever, or explode him. I'm gonna face him like a man. So it's fascinating, man. But I'm excited because Kwame's like he's the real deal. Like, he was on his way to do some work in the community. That's why I know he's sincere. I don't know the man like that, but I said it's like I've known him. Like I told him, he reminded me of my great-grandfather from the Low Country, who basically loved his mama cooking so much that he killed the white man to protect his mama's cooking. Like I told him, he loved his mama's cooking too, my great-grandfather. And I think about him every day now as I get older and try to, pursue my own dreams and make my visions real. So it's good to meet people on the journey that seem to be traveling the same way or try to get to the same destination that I am. So I know that the best is yet to come. But yeah, Black Wall Street, even, let me check this. I hope y'all can hear me. Yeah, I got your test. Yeah, Sister Dana. A shout out to Sister Dana. She was giving a shout out by Judge Joe. And I'll try to check in afterwards, after I get out with Judge. I'm gonna keep it down to 2 hours. So I'm saying I'm gonna keep it to 2 hours because there's a lot of stuff going on. But like the Black Wall Street thing, like I told y'all, okay. Yeah, she did Raquel Welch. Yep. He was a man, he loved women. It's only y'all know this with these so-called sex scandals. It's only a scandal when there's heterosexual sex involved. Bill Clinton, he had a sex scandal, right? Because it was heterosexual sexual stuff involved. He was, allegedly with Monica Lewinsky, allegedly. And then you look at what about the dude that ran for the governor of Florida? Why that's not a sex scandal? You know what I'm talking about? Because it was not with heterosexual situation. It was not a heterosexual situation. That's why. So people are interested. Thank you for checking in, Brother Rodney Mazel. We love you, madly. South Cac in the house. Yeah, the Carolina. I told Kwame, They gonna learn not to mess with no dudes. You don't mess with brothers from the Carolinas. We talked about that last week. I talked about Edgefield County. We talked about Willie Bosquet. Them cats in the Carolinas don't play. Now, I would say this though. It's extremes. I met some cowards in Carolina too. I met some coward, but that's everywhere. But you got some brave ones in the Carolinas. Like, if you look at the Jazz, you look at Nina Simone. She just saw Mississippi Goddamn, right? Nina Simone used to live next door to Malcolm X's family. Nina Simone, y'all didn't check out that documentary that her daughter produced about her amazing mom. She went through a lot of stuff, but guess where she from? She from North Carolina. You know, people talk about Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, but Nina Simone did Mississippi Goddamn. And she was, you know, she was commercial, she was mainstream, but she, you know, people talk about Lauryn Hill, but people don't talk about Nina Simone like they should. Like Dick would say, what other jazz musician, huh? Who said that? What? Name me a male jazz musician who did Mississippi Goddamn, who did Strange Fruit, huh? Huh? See how it works? It's the rhythms, paradigm shift, huh? You know, he do all this stuff. Like he got jazz hands and stuff, you know, Dick. Baba, may he rest in peace. But yeah, she was a real one, but she's from North Carolina. And you think about a lot of great jazz musicians. Thelonious Monk from Rocky Mount. He was born in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. You know, John Coltrane was born in Hamlet, North Carolina. Dizzy Gillespie's from a place called Sherrah, or Sherrah, whatever you call it, North Carolina, South Carolina. You had the Jenkins Jazz Orphanage in Charleston. Produced a lot of famous jazz musicians like Cat Anderson, and also the guy who killed one of my heroes, Lieutenant James Reese Europe, the jazz lieutenant, Herbert Wright. He was part of the Thunder Twins. He served under Europe in World War I and ended up killing him at the Boston concert. Like he bled to death at the hospital, but he got stabbed in the neck by Herbert Wright. And Herbert Wright ended up training the great Roy Haynes, the great jazz drummer and genius Roy Haynes. That was his first music teacher, because he was one of his neighbors in Roxbury. That's the same neighborhood where Farrakhan is from in Boston, as well as Malcolm's big sister Ella used to live in Roxbury. Her home is a historical landmark now. But that was his first instructor, the guy who killed one of my heroes, James Reese Europe. Herbert Wright is from South Carolina, from the Jenkins Jazz Orphanage, a world-renowned jazz orphanage or orphanage. My great uncle, who I met on his 87th birthday, my paternal grandmother's last living sibling out of 10, Uncle James French, we call him Uncle Frenchie. He was on the board of the Jazz Orphanage. Before I met him, though I know the universal God is real, because here I am. I've been studying James Reese Europe. I wrote a book about him in 2005. And I go to South Carolina in 2013, and my uncle's on the board of the orphanage of, you know, that the guy who killed James Reese Europe is from. So, and also I'm studying jazz in college. Come to find out that my uncle grew up with Charlie Parker in Kansas City, Kansas. That he actually did business with my uncles. And then my grandma, my paternal grandmother, actually sang for Jimmy Lunsford, another one of my heroes. And you see, I don't know if you notice the trend that my heroes are strong black men who were men, who were men, a man's man. You understand? Like James Reese Europe and Jimmy Lunsford, they were musicians, but they were visionaries. They believed in investing in the black community. They believed in saving the children through music education. They believed in community pride and honor by controlling our music and giving our best of service to our people. So this is why I love Kwame Brown in this moment, because he represents that. And I said, may the righteous ancestors continue to bless and protect and guide you, my dear brother. And I look forward to working with you some type of capacity to amplify your message, excuse me. I know you said, I can put you on my show. I said, first of all, brother, I want to put you on my show so you can reach my people, the people that I serve, with your message. And then he said, I'll put you on my show as well too. So we'll see. It is Mercury retrograde, so I don't know. But I'll just say thank you all for checking in on me. I appreciate the shout outs on social media, because people say, well, no, Judge didn't talk about you. I mean, you've been interviewing Judge since 2014. I say it is. I deal with Judge and I love the Judge Joe Brown. Right now, the reason why you help with Kwame, I'm sure, is because it's like he watched a lot of YouTube videos, and Kwame is very smart. Like I know, like how he's adapting to the environment he finds himself in. He's learning how to swim with the sharks and even flip some of the sharks. As Judge Joe Brown said, he flipped sharks, right? So he learned how to swim with the sharks and flip the sharks, right? So Kwame, a young gun, he's a young Turk, a young lion. I'm excited to be able to roar, rah, beside the brother. And it's interesting. But I'll give him at the Black Wall Street. And people still have a hard time talking honestly about what happened May 31st through June 1st, 1921 in Tulsa. Like I said, I met people, black people, who said they did not know about the Black Wall Street thing until they were fully grown, raising families. It was such a guarded, it was like a guarded open secret. As I remember that hearing about Johnny Cochran trying to fight for reparations for the survivors and descendants of those who lost their lives and survived whatever and trauma, trying to get them compensated. And to its credit, I like to give credit where credit is due. Once again, the American Red Cross, for all their problems and alleged perceived problems with dealing with black people, they said 300 black folks got perished or got killed. They provided the tents and stuff for months, going into the winter months, and they reached out. So we're going to talk about that in other shows, but without further ado, you got the man of the hour, the man of our times, the man who planted the seeds in a season or two ago, and now the manhood, the man up movement is fully flourishing, and he is the provider of that. He's the Johnny Appleseed of our movement, the one only brother, the Honorable Judge Joe Brown. How you doing today, sir?
Judge is in the house, young man. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited, man. I had talked to your friend. Thank you for recommending Kwame. Me for putting a good word for me. I know people kind of were concerned. I said, Judge is a good man. He got a lot on his mind. And the fact that you are a friend of the platform, been doing this for a while, I really appreciate it.
Well, I got you two hooked up. I exchanged your numbers with each other, you know, so he'll be getting in touch with you. See,
I talked to him today. And I heard you put in a good word for me. So I thought,
yeah. See, people don't listen. They hear what they want to hear, even if it wasn't said, and they don't hear what they should have heard if they don't want it said. Now, one thing, the brother is interesting. He's a single father taking care of his children.
Yes, sir.
And his claim to fame initially was basketball, but that's not what he's all about. And the other thing is that his basketball distinction is he's the first person to ever be a first-round draft choice right out of high school.
That's impressive. I thought Moses Malone was the first, but that's impressive.
He's been around a while. Michael Jordan was one of his sponsors, but he had other things to deal with besides basketball, so he got this stake out of it. So now he's being a family man all by himself, which is commendable.
Wow.
And he likes the manhood thing, which is good. See, I told him, and I'm telling you, we need some black leadership. And see, black leadership has got to know something about what's going on in the world. They have to be proven. They have to be tested. They have to be exposed. What happened back in the 50s, we got a young cadre of young black folk schooled by some old black folk, but mostly they were preachers. And they were into civil rights. And what happened? When they should have been coming into their prime, they got killed off before they hit 40. Malcolm, Martin, and the other thing is Martin, not so much Malcolm, was pushing a dead issue, which was civil rights, because essentially America does not give you a damn thing if you don't grasp it, seize it, take it, coerce it, or vest consequences for not giving it up. And civil rights was about begging. Oh, please, I'm down on my knees praying to Jesus. And while you're whipping me across my head, knocking the crap out of me until some of your colleagues start feeling guilty about you whipping my head. That ain't a fight. That's getting your butt whipped.
Yep.
So what happened is we got a new thing, a militant thing that came at a time and place where it could be activated and actuated. But unfortunately, we were unsophisticated and we were so off into unity, we did not realize that until a big fight had occurred internally, you weed out the pimps, the hustlers, the exploiters, the fakes, those who are using it to generate money and position instead of doing it for the reason of getting people ahead and getting free. So what you have to have this time is, yes, we need unity, but before you get unity, we need a big fight. And we don't need to unify with anyone except who's standing after that fight.
Yes, sir.
Because some of the stuff is just complete nonsense. And every revolution that has ever been had, at least starting with the one that the Americans came up with in 1775, has resulted in a lot of internal squabbles. Look at Russia, look at China, look at Korea, look at Vietnam. You look at Cuba. You had people who were in, and then they got liquidated because it didn't work the way they were trying to do it, or they got exposed, or somebody was more ambitious. And there's this thing about power. It's not given, it's seized.
That's right. You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Judge, because I hear people in my generation and younger saying, well, the so-called old folks will move over. But I remember Julian Bond. I met Julian Bond like 20-something years ago in college. I asked him a question about how were they able to attain leadership. He said, well, they don't pass you the torch. You take the torch.
That's
take
it
from them. They don't pass you nothing. You got to take it.
If you can't take it, you don't deserve it.
Exactly.
If somebody says this is an exceptional person, I'm going to groom them and abdicate in their favor, fine. But you just don't get off the throne, or you don't get out of being in charge because somebody, I want that toy, I want that. I'm entitled. They get this. Why are you giving the first place and everything? I want my. No, that's not the world. And there's another thing too. You don't need to be running stuff for people. You've never paid bills, paid a mortgage, kept up the apartment rent, paid the car note, had to go to work every day, not as an option. I don't feel like it. I want to play my video. No, that doesn't work. You have to have had your heart broken a time or two, had some difficulties, some disasters. You have to know about life. So some jackass jumping up saying, oh, you know, I've got this great idea and I've always wanted. No, well, I'm sorry. Because real leaders tend to be called. You know, things developing and say, oh, no, somebody's got to do something about this. And then it starts dawning on them, ain't nobody doing it. Maybe I need to do it.
That's true, because you know what's interesting.
And then it's kind of like this. I'll shut up. I don't mean
no,
it's kind of like this. They have all these people on a scene who are taking their cell phones and they're recording it instead of doing something about it.
Right. That's right. But I know we were saying that, I also think about we love our gangster movies and organized crime history. If you look at history, you look at Lucky Luciano. He took out the two bosses, the Maranzano and Masseray. He took them out. And even John Gotti took out his boss, Paul Castellano. He seized the moment.
And he had another boss who was his mentor that he never touched.
Yeah.
Because they had an accommodation. But they weren't located in the same venue. One was up in Providence, Rhode Island, and the other one was down in New York.
There you go. So my thing is, I be judged. People talking about, I mean, you're a very accomplished man, but people blame the boomers for what the other generations done. Like, you know, they blame boomers. But I said John Lewis was even a boomer. He was born before.
No, John Lewis was before.
Joe Biden before.
Yeah. See, here's the deal. The first boomers were born in 1946. 1960. How old does that make you? That makes you 14.
Right. You ain't paying no bills, like you said. Your heart broke really.
1965, that makes you, if you're the oldest, 19, and if you're the year I was in, 47, that makes you 18. So the generation next before us and the tail end of those did it. See, the boomers go from 46 to 66. It's a 20-year thing, 2 decades.
Right.
So we did some stuff. We didn't do some stuff. We came in on some stuff. We rammed some stuff forward. But I think, and this doesn't even come so much from the black side, but from the white side of the boomers, I think the worst thing we did for the country is this. We got what we needed crammed down our throats. Our parents, to an extent, spoiled us because the generation or two before us went through the Depression.
Right.
They had to do without. So when there was an opportunity to do with, get plenty, they said, we're not going to have our children go through what we went through. It's good. But then again, there was World War II, and there was this thing about education, science, and medicine. Everybody focused on it. It's like these were the icons. And we didn't have any choices in what we wanted to study. So when we got 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, we were very, very well prepared to take on the world. We had an upbringing where are you going? I'm going to go see my friend Alan and Richard and so on, so on, so on, so, and we're going to go to the park. Okay, yeah, I know, Mom, or Dad. Well, Dad was working. I know, Mom, I'll be back when the street lights come on. And you went off and nobody was peering over your shoulder.
Right.
And you learned to deal with adversity. You learned, oh, hell, I messed up now. What am I going to do? So you became independent. You became self-reliant. You knew that there were consequences to what you did. You got out there and you knew there were some thugs out there that you had to deal with. And at the time this is going on, basically those thugs to be in the making, they're crybabies with snot running down their nose crying for mama. When they got into 7th grade, then 8th grade, they joined the posse, and now they all this and that. They punked out, didn't have daddies. So we knew that, but we were used to dealing with stuff, white and black. So when we got in a place to have our voices heard, college, fresh into the job market, just got back from the NOM, we started talking about choices. But what we did not understand at that time, but we do now, is that when we put it in place so you can do a Montessori thing, so the children get to make choices is about what they do, it goes way wrong because they don't have a clue. And that's what's going on right now with this thing about having these youth be able to decide at 8 years old he doesn't want to be a boy or a man anymore, and allowing him to, without consulting with parents, to get the process implemented independently at 8, 9, 10 years old to get his dick cut off eventually. That's crazy.
Yeah, insane.
So that's our negative legacy. But on the other hand, we do have a positive one, which is activism, but it got suppressed during a 50-year-long hiatus by this glorification of dysfunction that so many of the Xers, et cetera, have embraced. You see, and I'll badmouth 2 other people, Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Their business has been selling mind crack. There's always a market for crack or a drug, including a mind drug. And what they simply have done is, one, Perry has jumped on the bandwagon of emasculating the country. He doesn't seem to like men much, at least not real men. Oprah, she's a man hater, been for years. I met her back in 1973. She probably doesn't remember me, but she used to work for a lady friend of mine that I was dating. And it's anti-masculine, so they get pushed. It's a crying catharsis where they glorify dysfunction to the max and excuse ridiculous, reprehensible behavior. Notice I didn't cuss.
Yeah, you're good.
But then fuck this shit. That's another way of just getting to it right there. So you communicate.
Yes,
now, it is what it is. And that's our negative legacy and that's our positive legacy. But it ain't over yet. And I'm not stepping down until somebody impresses me that I should step down, because that participation ribbon crap that got put out there after I came of age is nonsense. There's a first, second, third place and flat dead on the floor and taking you to the mortuary consequence to not doing what you ought to do. So to damn your feelings, the world doesn't care about your feelings. I had a good steak the other day, but I'm sure the cow didn't like the idea that he's going to be turned into something that's going to be served up medium rare with some horseradish. You know, life is not fair.
Yes, sir.
And there's stuff that eats us up. And speaking about eating stuff up,
Yeah, right.
okay, there's a real white supremacy thing, but it's nothing but adversity. And our ancestors did not stay in the village hovels because Simba was running around trying to get a meal on the Serengeti. We learned how to deal with Simba, and now the tiger used to be the king of the jungle. Now, no longer. He's threatened. The polar bears are suffering because the ice caps are melting. We are killing off the wolves. We are slaughtering dolphins and whales. We need to say, poor Oscar, who used to be a wolf, is out freezing in the kennel with a chain around his neck because he knows no love. See, we overcame adversity, those things with big teeth, lots of fur, or maybe not so much, and large size and large appetites that wanted us for breakfast, lunch, brunch, dinner, midnight snack. So we overcome adversity. So what is all this about? Oh, I'm scared. See, that's the other thing. Oh my God, he was terrified. Well, get over it. Be brave. It's not, not so much being fearless, but overcome your fear. Now they tell you it's all right to be afraid. Well, they leave out the part about you still got to stand and deliver. Even if you're about to piss on yourself, you still have to do what you're supposed to do. It's all right to run. See?
I mean, you tell the truth. But why? It's interesting. I know you said on Kwame's show about you going to college debt free before Reagan got into office. And I talked to Reagan, and I talked to Fred Hampton's lawyer friend Jeffrey Haas. He said the reason why they was able to do the work they did back in the 60s because they had to worry about no student loan debt. They ain't had that much debt coming out of college. He was able to take those stands.
See, going to college, sending kids to college was looked at as building human infrastructure.
Right.
The more educated, the higher educated your population was, the more they bring in industry, business, science, technology, everything, leadership, the whole 9 yards. So that was human infrastructure. And plus, at that time, science, medicine, technology were way up there. They were the rock stars of everything. Einstein was on posters.
Right.
The kids bought it in the student union. So different kind of situation. Education was free in a lot of states. I mean, maybe UCLA had a $56.50 fee, but that didn't cover insurance. That covered your medical insurance. So you got free dental care, free medical care, free pharmaceuticals, free eyeglasses, free checkups. You got free concerts, free admission to all of the athletic events and all of this kind of thing. So that's what you were paying for. You weren't paying for the education, but then St. Ron came up in there and he campaigned on a platform of destroying higher education. And he started saying crazy people were just faking it. So he started closing down all of the California mental institutions like Camarillo. We used to say, hey, man, you need to be up in Camarillo. Now that's closed down. And then he started ruining it. And of course, there was a scandal. The situation changed from no tuition at all. And in 18 months, it jumped up to $480-some a quarter. And now it's ridiculous. And it turned out that Ronald Reagan was a shadow partner with 11 members of the Board of Regents who had construction firms who were using the monies raised not to sink back into education, but to build outbuildings that took 25 years before they had the money to put classes in, and they were getting rich. The LA Times exposed it.
Judge, is it too late to go back to that tuition-free situation for our people
No,
now?
it's not.
Okay.
But why in the hell are you spending the equivalent of sending a generation to college free of charge so they can ramp up the human infrastructure when you're spending 2 or 3 times that encouraging people to sneak across the border?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Why
Contradiction.
why are you sending $25 billion to Pakistan, 10 of which are for advancement of transgender rights?
That's great questions. I'm actually this, Judge. You think they should eradicate student loan debt at this point? People should
I
get
think
forgiveness.
it's a good thing.
Okay.
See, they do it all the time. You know, the last time they did it?
When?
$781 billion on the economic incentive plan to bail out Goldman Sachs, Smith, Barney, and the institutions that had been exempt from having to have cash on account to cash on hand to back up their accounts. Okay. Not long before that, $700 billion to bailout fund. They can do that for the people. And I don't see why the government, as a resolution to that problem, didn't simply file involuntary bankruptcy proceedings against these people and get a GS-14 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on a government payroll appointed as receivers once these institutions went into receivership. Geithner, Obama Tang's Treasury Secretary, who used to be chief consultant for Goldman Sachs, drafted up the Economic Incentive Act $781 billion one, and he wrote in there in the fine print that the executives can use the taxpayers' money to pay their bonuses, even though they were failing at what they did. See, it was his idea for Goldman Sachs and that bunch to not have to have money in the account. It started, see, you have to be careful what you do for precedent.
You know, and also I remember back in 2008 period when people was telling their Congress people, representatives, do not bail out the banks. I mean, we told Congressman Steve Cohen, do not bail out the banks, and they bail them out anyway. So they don't listen to us.
They're paying off Steve Cohen. You can see what he got with his Exxon stock is a flat out bribe that's now ramped up because a certain Mexican-based corporation, they started in Mexico, got a contract to provide the high-octane gas for Southern California. See, in California, you go out there and you go to Exxon, Shell, BP, whatever, the 86 and 80, 87 and 89 octane gas is theirs. The 91, they can't even sell 93 out there. The 91 is all made at a refinery who comes in and gets the bid contract from the state of California. So all of the other gas chains have to buy it from this one central refinery. So they got the contract. They're affiliated with Exxon. So our congressman's stock went up. And then there was that funny business in return where after he'd been bad-mouthing this other Cohen who worked with Trump, he got him on board the bandwagon to help a buddy, Steve Cohen's buddy, get the contract away from TVA to supply the energy to Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. So watch your bill going up.
But you know, he I guess he got us distracted. Like you talk about this, but people focusing on the so-called proposed Bahia oil pipeline they're trying to run through our community.
Well, that was a bribe he got for that too, to go along with it. And Ford down there on the city council said he got a consultant fee. Hell, that's a bribe. And he named some other city councilmen. You're not supposed to get a consultant fee to a company that's trying to build a pipeline that's going to hire anybody in Memphis, not going to give any revenue to Memphis, just exercise an inconvenient easement that the city council voted for because they got bribed by a so-called consultancy fee.
So JJB in 2023, how you going to clean up City Hall?
Oh, yeah. Well, that there's TBI, and there's some people that need to be investigated by an outside independent agency. There are 26,000 untested rape kits that TBI has been offering to come in and test in a month for free, and yet the city council has extended a contract, open-ended contract with a New York firm for more than $7 million and paid a Ronnie Coleman a whole bunch of money to vet this stuff, and it's totally unnecessary. And Amy Wyrick, who is the district attorney, is trying to protect some of her important friends who would get exposed if these tests got done. Like, for example, what's the young lady that had her murder conviction set aside? Young white lady who was supposed to, Nora Jackson, who was supposed to have killed her mother. Well, there was some very incriminating DNA that was available. Wyrick refused to have the rape kit tested because the victim had had sex with somebody within the hour of her death. Some smart black female investigators who got fired because they protested got the test kit done. They found the DNA, which belonged to a United Methodist preacher up here in Jackson, Tennessee. Wow. His DNA was all over the house, all over the scene. They furnished that information. It went up, and the conviction got set aside, amongst one of the reasons that it was set aside. See, when you have a murder case, there's a cheat sheet that goes up. Was this really a fair trial or whatever? That stuff gets put in, and input gets put in, and sometimes it's very necessary for the promotion of justice. So Nora Jackson got her conviction set aside. See, that kind of thing goes on, and it's inexcusable, and TBI needs to be brought in, and an independent outside prosecutor needs to look at it. They did this as setting a precedent with Harold Ford, where the federal judge, black in this case, he allowed jurors in proceedings from outside this district to be involved because he said the government couldn't get a fair trial. Not the defendant, but let's put it that way. So with that precedent set, maybe we need prosecutors from another federal district to come in here, or circuit to come in here and deal with some of the corruption we have that nobody will touch. We've got down here the Mississippi River. That thing is not going anywhere for the next 1.5 million so years.
Right.
It won't dry up. And we've got this deep channel in there, and there's no reason in the world why hydroelectric generators cannot be put down in there with appropriate baffles to keep out the giant catfish and debris, and we get unlimited and free, clean, green electrical power, so that this pipeline becomes redundant and Memphis can sell some of the surplus electrical energy. We can use that to set the stage for heavy industry coming in here that doesn't need to use fossil fuel. We can do something about promoting, instead of trying to obstructing, acquiring barge transports who get loaded on international or ocean-going barge transports over in Europe, inviting more of that kind of trade to come up the Mississippi, unload at President's Island, world's largest barge unloading facility. So Memphis becomes the port of entry instead of New York City, Brooklyn, Boston, et cetera, and Baltimore. So we become the port of entry. We become the Chicago of the 21st century. The police department, oh, give me a break. We're going to ramp up the police review board. That's impotent. Been around for 40 years. What you need is to do the same thing the military found out it had to do, and it is embodied in the Constitution. You need civilian control over not only military institutions, but quasi-military institutions. They did that for the military, but they had not even invented police departments when the Constitution was ratified. That was 60 years in the future when Scotland Yard came up with that. So instead of having it where now this idiot Strickland appointed the first chief of police in 40 years, instead of a director who sits subject to the whim of the mayor, who is politically responsive. Sometimes you have a chief who does not have to respond to anybody except maybe worry about the budget being reduced by the city council, which doesn't give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need is to restructure, so you keep the director, which is still live and good, but you make him a civilian, even if he's a retired cop. And you have a secretary of defense, right? That's the director of police. You have a chief of police, that's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's a military figure. Then you have each of the bureaus: homicide, property crimes, sex crimes, and you have a sub chief over those. And then what you need is a sub director again. So every single quasi military position occupied by a chief also has a civilian counterpart. So when you have the board meetings or the staff meetings, the civilian componentry has a great deal to say about the direction that the police department takes in terms of the long view, the short view, and the police department basically just carries out the tactics dictated to them by the civilian component. Now, that's what I'll put in, rather than having this nonsense right here. And see, right now, we got a chief. I don't even know the lady, but I know she got fired for corruption from Atlanta, fired for corruption in North Carolina, and now we have her, and we got a corrupt city council. Not everybody, I'm sure, but we have too much. So when is this going to stop? See, I've looked at the income that Memphis has, and that income is high. But too often the income gets spent, and I won't name them right now, but there are basically 11 entities. And they get most of the benefit from the revenue that is raised by the city of Memphis. Typically what it is a city councilman gets a generous contribution to his campaign war chest, and he votes or she votes for a zoning variance. Zoning variance allows one of the 11 who in the real estate acquisition, management, and development, construction, and construction material supply. And they have a resolution that gets passed by the city council, signed off on by the mayor. And the resolution has these people hired to use their properties, which are rented to the city of Memphis. So they get money that way. Since they're hired to do the development and the construction, they get paid for doing the development and construction. Then they are allowed to operate the thing supposedly for 4 to 6% of their net, depending upon whether they have a similar deal with the county. But accountants always manage to zero out the income of a corporation, so there's zero net. So in other words, the city of Memphis, for this select group, is paying for the real estate, leasing it from them, paying them to build on it, paying them to set the business up, and letting them run the business, keep the profit that the taxpayers paid for, like the pyramid, Bass Pro, right. $85 million pyramid. Never got fully developed, but the city paid finally for putting those elevators on opposite corners of that pyramid for the restaurant at the top. They get their logo up there shining for miles. It costs the taxpayers $85 million, and they get it for free, essentially, for $1 a year rental, and they're supposed to hire people. They got 126 employees in the worst EEO posture in the whole United States. Out here at their facility on Sycamore and I-40, that store, well, for at least 10, 15 years, they had exactly 2 black employees. One was a janitor, and the other one was the maid.
Mm.
So what are we doing? This is the largest predominantly black city in the United States of America. We have a growing Hispanic component that needs to be accommodated, but we've got people who are giving away everything that can be used for small business development, for infrastructure in middle-class neighborhoods, and they're putting it in the neighborhoods of the well-to-do. They're giving all of the revenue away to the certain select few who get the gravy, and nobody else gets anything. And we've got supposedly a city council that is predominantly us, but they don't deliver anything because that's not their position. They seek political office, not to do something for the people, but to get an opportunity to become less than lower middle class or low class and move up. So that needs to change.
You saying so much right now, and people don't understand. I mean, this is like amazing. My thing is this: I think you should be running for governor of Tennessee. I don't think you should be the stuff you try to do. You need a bigger office and a bigger platform.
There's no chance that somebody black like me, well,
I don't know,
elected governor right now, and not for a long time, and I ain't gonna be around that long.
Well, Judge, I actually this. I got to talk about the I-40 bridge situation, and that affects commerce. This is a distribution hub of the country.
Let me go there.
Okay.
Do you remember this first Walking Tall movie? Not the one with The Rock in it.
I'm familiar with it.
The real story of Sheriff Buford Buster up here in Haywood County.
Yeah.
Okay, he got killed. You know who the evil person they never mentioned was?
Who?
Governor Ray Blanton.
Oh, wow.
He ran the prostitution, gambling, bootleg, alcohol, and highway scams. See, that's if you ever gone down I-55 and
definitely.
You already know the Mississippi border.
Yes, sir.
Zzz. That's because in Tennessee, this highway building scam that he was a driving engine behind, they'd get the bid because they'd low bid on the construction. And by federal regulations, since it's an interstate highway, there are so many tons of this, that, and the other that's supposed to go down as a foundation. Well, they scrimped on it. And they made a profit because they didn't put in what they were supposed to have put in. This bridge, I said years ago, is going to be like a lot of other bridges. It was built using this scam with substandard steel. And now what you have is an effective girder, structural girder that's cracked, and that thing's going down. And they got a whole bunch of bridges locally that have the same problem. So that's because of the failure to comply. Now, if I was the mayor, I'd bring in an outside analytical group, and I'd have them drill cores down into these highways to see if, in fact, we had the foundation that was contracted for, and on the basis of it being a hidden tort, i.e. fraud, I would start using prosecutorial authority from the state through TBI, and also civil action would be taken through the city attorney's office to sue these folk and get them to repair all of these city streets that are impacted, the highways in here, once and for all at their expense, even if it bankrupted them, because they defrauded the public. And it's a hidden tort because we don't know yet, just suspect. But you see, that's a symptom of somebody not putting in a proper foundation where one section of the highway with the same trucks, they don't turn off at Shelby Drive. They keep going. See, that needs to be done.
I mean, also, when you talk about using the Mississippi River as a source of power, you want to take on not only MLGW, but the Tennessee Valley Authority. How you?
No, you don't take on the TVA because guess what?
What?
The TVA has problems. Their infrastructure is beginning to crumble. And actually, what you could do is you can integrate what you come out with there with TVA. And if they get outside the state distribution, they take care of that because they've already got it. And what winds up happening is they get a little piece of the action. That's how it works. But you see the other thing too, Tennessee Valley Authority is a federally established entity.
Mm-hmm.
It came about during the Depression to deal with the fact that the economy was flat around here and depressed. So we aren't dealing with your typical private corporate entity that's driven by profit.
Mm-hmm. Man, Judge, you saying so much, you putting people on so much game right now, but I just
And one other thing too, see, a lot of people don't know this. TVA at one time had a pretty active financial aspect where businessmen, small businessmen, could get financing. Now, Harold Ford put John Ford over that years ago, and that didn't work too well because of some more. But bottom line is that can still be done. So the revenue that would be generated would be put into their business loan program. So Memphis small businessmen would have some place to go and apply for small business loans.
You know what? You being mayor of Memphis will put the mayor of Shelby County to shame. You make them all look bad. You make the
Well,
governor
Mayor
look
Shelby
bad.
County doesn't really have power. He's just essentially a figurehead. And the person they have in there, well, let's just say this. He's black, but he and his wife have both been professors at Memphis State Law School for at least a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And the law school encourages its faculty to engage in pro bono representation. And I don't recall any pro bono stuff that person nor his wife has done for the benefit of the citizenry. There are a lot of class actions that it would be ideally put into the lap of a law professor to deal with. But he's just up there pushing an agenda that is not effective for this area, and he's trying to push along with J.B. Mays and this new police chief to keep people from carrying weapons lawfully. You see, they're talking about, well, my God, this couple left the loaded automatic in the front seat of their car, and the 3-year-old used it to shoot the 11-year-old. Well, the 11-month-old. Well, it's a tragedy, but it's stupid. But you see, you still don't deal with the question that there's no way to keep them from purchasing a firearm, and that just could have happened in the house. But that has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not it's appropriate for people to carry it. And right now, we've got an upsurge on violent crime. It's not as bad as it was 30 years ago, but it's still on the uptake. It's an uptick. And you want the citizens to have to go around defenseless, and the police department has quite a few funded but unfilled positions. So that doesn't make any sense. What they're doing, see, is it sounds good, but it's like this. Well, I'll give you an example. All right. All cats have 4 legs. It has 4 legs, therefore it's a cat. That's not logical. Because what it said, you have to say is cats have 4 legs. Only cats have 4 legs. It has 4 legs, therefore it's a cat. But that's not true. What you say is all mammals have 4 limbs. If it's a cat, it has 4 limbs. That's the true one, but they take it. The cat has 4. It has 4 limbs, therefore it's a cat. Philosophy 101A.
Now, do you believe that all states, especially Tennessee, should embrace constitutional carry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me explain. We need a license. I said, okay. We got to have a license to drive a car. But see, operating a car is a privilege. It's not a right. So you can be licensed. But the Second Amendment is part of the Bill of Rights. And the reason that you have the Second Amendment and translated into modern terms is so the citizenry can be sufficiently armed to conduct an asymmetric war against an oppressive government that attempts to implement a tyranny and take over from the lawful government. Now, do you need a license to exercise your First Amendment rights to free speech?
Nope.
No. Do you need a license to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures? That's Amendment 4. No. Do you need a license to be free from self-incrimination? That's Amendment 5. No. Do you need a license for any of the other fundamental rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights and to general due process? Do you need that to have a license to have due process? No. So how in the hell do you try to impose a license on something you just don't like? And the main purpose for the First Amendment is threefold. One, so you can offset a tyranny. We have checks and balances in our government. You have the judiciary, the legislative body, and the executive. Nobody's supposed to be able to exercise all three functions because, in fact, what that would do is be conductive to a tyranny. You have the state governments, you have the federal governments. That's an offset. Don't believe it, look at the Civil War. All right, bloodiest war the U.S. ever been in. Now, offsetting all of them is an armed people. Now, that's rule one. Rule two, the safest you can make this system right now, if you changed it, is a lot safer than it is now, but it also sets up mechanisms to impose a goose-stepping fascist tyranny. So to keep the state from getting that kind of power, you keep it from having certain things available to it that would make everything very safe. And you leave those to the citizens so the government does not acquire that kind of authority. For example, statistically, if you weren't Jewish or somebody that was offensive, the safest place in the 20th century was Nazi Germany between 1933 and 1939. You can guarantee it almost to be crime-free, but you had the Gestapo,
right,
which is not good. We have three effective and functioning national political parties. Only two of them are official. Those represented by Dumbo, those represented by Jackass, and those represented by Rainbow. Now, let me say this. I'm not gowning gay folk. Homosexuals have an absolute right to do whatever in the hell they want to do in their bedroom. Okay? But when they start exercising authority as a de facto political party and imposing their worldview on everybody else, then you start having a problem. And here's the other thing. All Republicans are not evil old white men. All Democrats are not all conscientious black men. All black women, I guess the case is with them. And all LGBT does not consist of your typical gay person. All right? In this system, one of the things we have discovered is that you cannot have a religion become an official religion of the state, of the government. You cannot have the government impose a religious belief on the public. You cannot have a government implement religious policy. We've got an eclectic society. You have Jews, you have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Hindus, you have Buddhists, practitioners of Zen, you have agnostics, you have atheists. Now, general rule to stay out of it, but you have something which is the philosophy of the LGBTQ cult. And it really is kind of quasi-religious because it embraces a worldview, a standard of behavior, and some demands on the way everything is approached. And what you do is, whereas a religion can't do these things, you let LGBTQ impose stuff. So they have drag queens that read to the children 3 to 8 during their formative years. So for the rest of their lives, if they live to be 75 or 80, they still have the drag queen in there talking to them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have things that don't work. For example, this demand that there be fluid gender.
Right.
The science that supports that is marginal, and there are only a very few people who are into it that support that, who are scientists. But what they've done that is bad for right now, because you can see the effects, is for 50 years, they have turned science and medicine, which used to be sacred cows, into demons. They have destroyed it, the credibility that those agencies had, and they say they made a mistake. Of course they do. They're learning. But they're supposed to be perfect all the time. They can't. No human is perfect. But they've destroyed our confidence in these institutions that we used to have in these institutions. And now they have substituted a skepticism. So when they say it's scientifically proven that there are fluid genders, no, it's not, but they can get away with it now. You see, so that comes in. All right, let's take a practical application. It's a homework assignment.
Okay.
They want to say you can pick your personal pronoun. 9-year-old kid, somebody's grandson, was trying to tell me I'm a they. I said, well, son, let me tell you something. I said, they, we, when you're talking about one person, is the royal we. And I don't recall that anybody in your family I've known is that kind of royalty. And plus, we don't allow it in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to do something like, say, instead of saying he is coming to dinner, say they is coming to dinner. That's bad English. And I don't even remember your name, son. What is it again? I said, well, if you want to be called those kind of pronouns, tattoo it on your forehead when you get old enough. If you still think that way when you get old enough to be able to consent to a tattoo.
Right.
And meanwhile, I don't even hardly remember your name, so I'm not going to remember your pronoun. Now, here's a homework assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Go to any serious book. Just randomly go through there, pick any pages in the book, take 2 or 3 pages or just 2 or 3 paragraphs off of one page or one paragraph, and just try to rewrite it using these new pronouns and see if you can make it make sense. You can't. So in other words, one of the downsides, the fallout behind this nonsense, is that to accommodate some very few people who really have mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
They can't help it, maybe, but they have mental health issues. We are supposed to destroy our ability to communicate effectively. Instead of he is going downtown to try and make a difference, they is going downtown to try and make a difference. So we can, are you talking about we plural? What the hell is the new plural for we? We make it, what are you talking about? Him, us, them? What the hell are you saying?
Yep.
So you can't communicate. So in the process of accommodating somebody's whim, you destroy what is there for the many. Effective communication. So I'm all for whatever the devil you do in the bedroom, that's your business. But here's another observation about that. Even if you are straight, there are limits on what you're supposed to be saying about what you do in your bedroom. That's your business. If you want to get your freak on, love it, go for it. But you're not supposed to go tell the children who are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old what your freak is. Nor are you supposed to be exhibiting it to the public. Now, this is when I got to talking about Cardi B and Lizzo. I said, we let an immigrant come in here and be naturalized, and she turns out to be a streetwalker. She says that. She brags about it. She also brags about drugging her tricks so she could rob them. Those are felonies. But we let the story be told and we glorify it. What kind of image is that about a society, for a society that's got problems right now with violence in it, that is insane, that it lacks public order, public dignity, and decorum. What kind of role model is that for young girls? And then we get Lizzo, who has, some psychologists have told me, some really serious personal problems and a deep lack of self-esteem that she's trying to compensate for. Okay, fine. Get her some treatment, counseling, and therapy. She's not attractive, but why are we glorifying her getting out there and acting in such a lewd and lascivious fashion? See, that's not the face of heterosexuality. Cardi B is not the face of heterosexuality, just like some of the imagery that other side has about the trannies, the pedophiles, the flamers, and everything else, the fluid gender and all that other stuff. That's not their face either, but they're pushing it because they have assumed the mantle of a political party. And what they are is, it's like, okay, you can be an alpha and a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an omega and a Mason. A sigma and a Mason. You can be two.
Right.
Well, they can be two things also. They can be a Democrat and an LGBT, and they can be a Republican and an LGBT. And what happens is, because we are not recognizing that reality, the Republicans and the Democrats can collaborate to have a big fight, shut down the government, while meanwhile other stuff is going on behind the smoke screen to deal with their joint LGBT membership. Now, I like Asians. Nothing wrong with Asians. They're good people. They've been through hell too in this country. Not as much as us. And an Asian hate crime bill sounds cool, but you got to read it, because it's just camouflage for a severe attack on the First Amendment, a severe attack on the Fourth Amendment, which is search and seizure, and the Fifth Amendment, right to be free from self-incrimination, and also a severe attack on due process. That is dangerous. You see, if you take away the Asian thing, and actually the body of it, it's so dangerous, doesn't say that anything about Asian. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that you have now had some people turn a popular, we're going to go help Oscar out in the cold winter in the kennel, he's changed up, show no love, and he's abused. Wow, what does it say about what they do with the other stuff? If you get investigated for any of this, you get put on a list, according to another law that's passed, as a domestic terrorist. If you ever are investigated as a domestic terrorist, you can't buy a firearm. That's the new law they put in. And they have an expansion on H.R. 127 that's passed the House, but it's stalled in the Senate, that would make it go further. Like, to exercise your right to get a firearm, you would have to, even for everyone you already lawfully own, you'd have to pay an $800 fee. And you would have to submit to a psychiatric examination, the contents and objectives of which are to be determined by the Attorney General of the United States in order to deal with this. Now, can you see how dangerous it is to allow any government entity to impose a requirement for a psychiatric test on a citizen? Not when he's charged with a crime, but when he tries to exercise a constitutional right. So where does it go? Well, if you look at the Asian Protection Act, the Equality Act, and some of the language they have in there, technically you could expand that to include somebody being required to undergo a psychiatric examination in order to fully exercise free speech. Now, the danger to the free speech is that if you defame somebody's character and they're not a public figure, blocked from that by the case of New York Times versus Sullivan, U.S. Supreme Court, 1962, And they couldn't even recover because there's an absolute defense to a defamation case. Truth is an absolute defense to a defamation case. And when you get into a defamation case, a lot of times it's not brought because the party that you're suing gets to get discovery on all of the wrongdoing stuff you've been doing. You don't want your business in the street. But even though you can't even sue somebody civilly, they make it so you can go to jail if you make somebody feel uncomfortable. And you know, what is that thing? The truth will set you free. Now you can't say the truth because it does not go with these people's narratives. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You know, and see, gay pride. Okay, I get it. But do you really get it? 1960s, black folk felt deeply ashamed because we were bounced on by just about everything and everybody. So we decided to deal with self-help. I'm black and I'm proud. Ungawa, black power. Afros. Dashikis. The style, fad. But now we're getting the tone set by some people who are deeply disturbed. They hate themselves. They hate what they are. They hate what they want to be. And they're trying to impose that subconscious self-hate on the rest of us to revive what black folk, at least, Asians at least, everybody else, Hispanics at least, have been trying to overcome by self-pride. Now, let's look at a typical black pride, not black pride, gay pride parade. They got these floats. They got boys down in there, tighty whities, crawling along with hoods over their faces and dog collars and chains and like they're dogs. And they got guys up on the floats with black chaps on and their buttocks, bare buttocks out and penises hanging down and their children looking. Is that pride, or is that a burlesque generated by the same thing you'd see if we had a black pride parade and everybody dressed up as a slave or a minstrel or a monkey on a chain with a white organ grinder turning it? You see the imagery? So what is it that's getting spread? And then most importantly, in the schools, you can't teach straight sex. Right. Now, how do you get to teach homosexual stuff to second, third, fourth, fifth graders? How do you tell the public with a straight face that you set it up so a child who can't buy cigarettes, can't buy whiskey, can't sign a contract, can't drive a car, he can agree to get chemically neutered? He can agree that he wants to be a girl, or that you have a little boy that the transgender folk, drag queens, are bragging about. He's 11 years old. He goes around twerking with just the barest of shorts on because he wants to be a tranny. He hasn't even had an erection yet. He doesn't know what it's for. He doesn't know what the vagina is about. So how's he gonna make this choice?
Well, you know, Judge, you talk about hiding the contradictions. I'm thinking about the fact that you connected and building with Kwame Brown, but look at the other end of the spectrum. You have Dwayne Wade, saying he don't want to lead his household and treating his son like a woman, a girl.
Let me talk about him. Let me say something real quick. Do you take it back? He says, my wife wears the pants in the family.
Right.
Well, the son wears dresses, and they want to call him a daughter, and he wears kilts so he can back up his son. She literally is wearing the pants in the family.
But you look, Kwame,
like that.
Yeah, and he's a strong black man, father figure, but he's willing to raise his children by himself instead of be compromised like it's like D Wade is by his so-called woman.
See, every somebody that's got male equipment does not equate to being a man. Man is a status. You have to earn it.
That's right.
You have to be about the business. You have to have done the preparation. You have to have gotten the attitude.
That's right.
And see, the man thing is amazing. When you're a man, you take a whole lot of grief that you otherwise would be crying about just because you could hold your chest out and said, I needed what I do. And then about being a man, see, when I was growing up, the teachers, the neighbors, the relatives, the friends, the family, act like a man, boy. Men don't do that.
Right.
Son, act like a man. Son, what the devil's wrong with you? You got on pink panties instead of drawers? What's the matter with you? Men don't act like that. Now you never hear it. And you see, you know why you have to put that in the kid's head?
Why?
It's freezing down in the water. It's pitch black. The Titanic is going down, and you got to be talking about and acting on women and children in the lifeboat first, so you can drown and or freeze. That's some rough stuff.
But Judge, you know, people say you were talking about critiquing so-called black women like Lizzo and Cardi B. I don't think she even claimed to be black, but they say she's black. But they say it's a saying in some parts of the community, so-called community, that the black woman is God, that she is the God, that she is the leader of everything. Well, they say God, though. I'm talking these so-called woke black folks, some of them.
Well, let me tell you this. You know how we are prone to saying that we're all kings and queens? I met the heir to the throne of Swaziland and the Zulu land. His brother was in there with him too. He's next in line. Their father is High King. And he gave us an illustration of what it was to be High Prince, His Royal Highness. And it was kind of funny the way it went down, but he made the illustration and he said, look, you see, that is what happens when there's a king. I am not king yet. I am the High Prince. So you imagine what kind of authority my father has. But you see how these Swaziland citizens who came from the consulate behaved toward the king. I put my foot on his head and he felt blessed. I shoved his face down into the ground for the impertinence of making a disturbance that embarrassed me and the other Royal Highness in the room when they entered. And I put blood on your floor that I made them wipe up. He said, there's only one king. There are not kings, plural. He said, there are queens, but the only reason they're queens is because the king is having sex with them. He said, Judge, the American black people need to understand this when they're talking about kings and queens. He said, there is only one king. And if there are more than one claiming to be king, you killed him. And the queens have sex on a regular basis with the king. And that is the only reason why they are a queen, if he decides to glorify them. He said, if he did not, he they concubine. He said, that is what you got to understand. He said, but in America, you don't need that. That's why so many people come over here. It is because we don't have king and queen. You don't have king and queen. Now you want to be, and you don't even know what it is. And by the way, he was working on his PhD at UCLA, and his brother was working on a PhD at USC, and Daddy was going to abdicate when they got their dissertations done.
Wow.
And wait. Both of them killed their first lines with a wooden spear, no iron head.
Wow.
2 weeks before their 13th birthday. And guess what? To become king and heir apparent, one of them has to take a sword. And one of them takes a spear. And between them, they have to kill a Cape buffalo, which is the hardest terrestrial animal to kill. Now, somebody just said Judge uses all of these Scrabble words. Let me break it down. The motherfuckers, if they want to be in charge, they got to go kill a goddamn big-ass motherfucking animal with some 500-year-old shit. And they got to put their ass out there on the line. Does that seem more in line with what you want? Somebody just sent that text. Now, see, I'm trying to be polite because it's technically Sunday.
Oh no, you doing your thing. Also, I want to say about you talk about Lee Harris, the mayor of Shelby County. I actually went to high school with Lee Harris. He was an upperclassman, and I think he's Morehouse guy too. But his wife actually resigned from a professorship at the University of Memphis because of racial discrimination in the University of Memphis Law School, allegedly. That she, I mean, this is the mayor wife of Shelby County. She resigned this past week. Cause she said they overlooked the African American who was qualified to be dean of the law school, who had the JD as well as a PhD, but they overlooked. And then somebody in the law school told her that you look at that we selected you to be here. That they did her a favor by making her.
And her husband ain't doing a damn thing to change that.
Yo, it's fascinating, man. So let me ask you this: does systemic racism exist?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
but it's adversity. White supremacy is real, but it's like, as I said all the time, it's like lions. It doesn't have teeth. It doesn't eat you for lunch. And we overcome adversity. So buck it up, suck it up, man up.
I got to ask you a Hollywood question. Did you know Paul Mooney by any chance who just passed? You ever meet him while you was out there?
I didn't hang with those folks.
Okay.
They weren't my type of people. And interestingly enough, a lot of people that are big in Hollywood that stay big, they don't hang with Hollywood. And something I get asked all the time, why does everybody get married so often? Being married is the only safe way to date. You get what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about running around on your wife, but if you want to date a woman, you got to marry her to date her safely.
That makes sense. I mean, it's just weird.
You got a lot of gold diggers and freaks out there. You never can tell. That hashtag Me Too. I hadn't had my show back in '98, but 2 or 3 months, they had a big thing at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. I went there. I was a bachelor. I was looking at all of these beautiful starlets. I was having a good time dancing with them. I hooked up with one woman. We sat at the table, drank some wine. She got up and went to the ladies' room, came back. Said, you know that tall dude in the gray suit over there? I said, yeah. Said, he has offered me $2,000 in cash if I'd say you tried to molest me. So we went around and got written statements from as many of the women that I danced with that this same person who was an executive with the show had gone to and tried to get them to give him statements that I'd molested him. So we broke that up because they were trying to kill the show and embezzle money, but I hired a beautiful sister to be the publicist and paid her a bunch of money and we saved it. But we did this. We created a fictitious woman. We filed affidavits or got notarized statements, and we filed them under seal with the HR department. This was big ticket right when it was getting absorbed by Paramount. Viacom had bought it. Big ticket had been one of Aaron Spelling's productions, which is a long story behind that. So when we created this fictional person and spread the word, lo and behold, human resources and the CEO of Paramount, they want me over there to answer to this atrocious anti-woman behavior. And they had a letter of complaint signed by this fictional woman. The middle name, the date of birth, and everything else that we had put in our affidavits. So I had them bring over the box from Human Resources. I had them break the seal. I said, not read. So I had a lawyer there, you know, it was like, you lying pieces of crap. You see what you're doing? This is a setup. You're lying, and you got stuck. They weren't there 6 weeks later, and I was there for 14 more years. So, you know, they are some low-down, filthy folk, and that's what they do. See, they think, and this is an example of systemic racism.
Okay.
In California, I never met a white man who would acknowledge that there was anything any black man knew better than him, except maybe playing basketball if he was on the Lakers or the Clippers.
Right.
All right. You know, white boys can't jump. You know, white men can't jump. All that nonsense. Some of them can't. Larry Bird and all that bunch. But here's the thing. That's racism. Here's another example. We know who Judge Judy is. We know who Oprah Winfrey is. We know who Dr. Phil is. We know Judge Joe Brown, but not what Judge Joe Brown was doing in that industry, because all four of us were in the same special unit run by Roger King of King World, whose daddy invented television syndication. That's all these old cartoons, black and white movies and stuff you see on, and stuff like Judge Judy and Dr. Phil. So they put him in charge. He had found and discovered Oprah and Phil, even though the legend is that Oprah discovered Phil, but it was Roger King. He managed Oprah's money and made it all for her, not her. And he told me one time, he's dead, so it's not telling on him. He just said, I was looking for a poster child for ugly stay-at-home female America. And after I interviewed or auditioned 350 some women, Oprah stood out. So now, he was a stand-up guy. He'd been a football player. He wasn't into the Hollywood stuff. He said, Judge, they're really trying to rank you out. He said, I'm going to fix that. But he died, unfortunately, before it got all the way done. And what wound up happening is the person that's talking right now beat Oprah almost every week in the ratings for the last 3 years. So who's supposed to be the superstar? I stomped on Phil every week for the last 3 years that Roger King was trying to work his magic. So who's the superstar? I was stepping on Judge Judy's and sometimes beating her, especially when they put me in prime time in the Southeast for an hour format instead of a half-hour format. But who's supposed to be the superstar? They would not even advertise me in the LA TV Guide. And I'm the number one or number two, not judge show, but syndicated show in America.
Wow.
I always took time to buy a couple of shares of stock in any big entity I was working with. So you get the corporate newsletter or the stockholders newsletter. So they're calling me their number one money-making project, all right? Number one. And they were listing that they had 14 consecutive quarters of increased profit, and the last four were the highest in the history of CBS. And they were attributing a great deal of that to me because of the low overhead and the massive revenues generated, because I was bringing in advertisers who were selling high-end products. So they did not want straight black man to be number one TV show. And in fact, if you looked at what is it, Wikipedia? I don't know what's in it. I haven't looked at it in 5-6 years, but they had me listed as the second highest paid person in Hollywood behind Judy. Wow. And that's because they weren't paying me equally for what I did. So that's discrimination. But think about it. And when they were talking about, they weren't talking about black person, they were talking about second highest paid person in Hollywood. And that includes all of the male white folk. So put that in your hat when you start listening to so-called black celebrities talking about what they have to endure to keep working. See, they didn't discover me until I was in my 50s. So I had a real life. And I always tried to say, looky here, you can go walk any street in this county and you will find somebody on that street who has somebody in their family who owes something to me. And what I did is I took a lot of pro bono cases just trying to do the right thing. I got people, you've been there, I've got people walk up to me now, Judge. Do you remember me? No. I don't remember you. Well, you gave me some time. Did I give you enough? Oh, no. See, it was that man thing you taught me. I'm a grandfather now, and, you know, all of my sons and grandsons, they're doing fine. Thank you for showing me the way. See, you don't have to do that, but you should do that. And see, we keep getting fed a diet of do what you want to do.
Right.
But it ought to be do what you ought to do, because if you have been trained right, doing what you ought to do is what you want to do. And when you do what you want to do, then you feel pleased and you can sleep at night and not go through all of these changes. You have a built-in purpose. You have a built-in goal. And as I've said on your thing many, many times, if you are a real man, don't talk this nonsense about, I don't have any daylight at the end of my tunnel, Judge. You know, everything against me, white supremacy, ain't going to let me go nowhere. Well, guess what? You have an opportunity, because it's your job as a man to get in that tunnel and get through the flames and smoke, carry the people along behind you who you are responsible for, kill all the fire-breathing Gila monsters that are setting smoke and flames are going in that tunnel, so they can get to the daylight, even if you don't, and at least they will remember you a few generations downstream, rather than being somebody forgotten in a weeded up grave plot.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sleep better. And there's one other thing too. I told you this, between where I am and where you are, I think of myself where you are right now. But between where I am and where you are, it seems like just 3-4 months ago. The time passes quickly.
Yes,
so
does.
when you start getting where I am, you want to be able to sleep at night, and you ain't worrying about going to hell. You ain't worrying about how much you're going to bribe your preacher to pray about you, so Jesus will take you to the pearly gates. You don't give a damn, because you've done what you needed to do, and you feel good about it.
Just like, so people asking me in the chat, do you have a book out? People want to read your book.
I am working on it as we speak. I tweet at Judge Joe Brown TV, and quite frankly, what you get in terms of a lot of the tweets are snippets from the book.
Okay.
Now, I'm also on Parler, and even though they won't give me a blue check, I guess I don't want it on Twitter, and they shadow block the hell out of me. I
don't know,
have the bread P from Twitter, from Parler.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to preach. And you can find me on Fridays along with Valerie Denise on what is a syndicated radio thing. Just look under Judge Joe Brown / Valerie Denise or Judge Joe Brown Radio. You appear every now and then.
Oh, most definitely. Shout out to Sister Valerie Denise Jones holding it down at Big Media at the Judge Joe Brown Show.
I think she kind of likes you too.
Oh, really? Oh, she's a good looking woman from the pictures I've seen. Like, she used to be a model, as you say. She's a good looking, beautiful chocolate sister, but she's doing her thing out there holding it down. But
she's in Florida now.
Oh, she in Florida.
You ought to fly it out there and take
I fly down there.
You try to put out on South Beach.
She in Miami, or she's some other part?
She can get to Miami, I assume. Everybody in Florida ain't that far apart from the pieces, you know.
Well, Judge, it's so much. Like, what do you think about what's going on now? Do you think, would you ever have thought that an athlete in the entertainment industry complex, like a bird like Kwame Brown, will be such an advocate for your message of man up? You ever thought that would happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would. There's another Brown, Jim Brown.
Jim
Brown didn't give anybody any slack. He was like a gorilla with a gyroscope on the football field, and he was vocal about what he was doing in terms of black folk off the field. One time, he got in trouble, and the judge was trying to lecture him about straightening up his raise and his anger. He said, "Don't give me that shit. Just give me my time." And he went on out and did 30 days.
Are y'all related, though? Are y'all from the same plantation or same islands?
Not that I know of, but there are a lot of Browns that are doing stuff.
Y'all some defiant bunch. You Browns are very defiant. I even think about the white dude, John Brown. Something about that Brown surname. A lot of defiance and righteous anger. But Jim is from the Georgia Islands, though. I guess he's Geechee too, then. Like that. He's from the Georgia Islands. And he does. And like I talked about, it's funny you said that, because he had that economic empowerment program or organization back in the 60s.
Yeah. Tell you something else. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the NBA GOAT, greatest of all time. Nobody's come close to the records he holds except Wilt Chamberlain has 2.
Right.
And that's scoring more than 100 points all by himself in a game. Did it twice.
He did it twice.
Did it twice. Now, just think of how boring the games are now compared to when one guy is running 100 points, 108 points, I think, and 112 on the scoreboard all by himself.
But they only get,
Kareem, this is the point. Kareem went to UCLA. We're classmates.
Okay.
I don't even know if he'd remember me, but nobody could forget 7'2" tall, big Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Uh-huh.
He went to Islam, which was not popular. And anytime we had to go make a move on somebody, he'd always go. He used to have this big, long slide rule because he was into engineering, had a B+ average. And he'd always have a big slide rule clipped to his belt. They didn't have computers and cell phones then. So anytime it was time to make a move, you count on him going. You count on the basketball team. You could count on the blacks. We didn't have but 4 blacks on the whole UCLA football team. I did that. Then they wanted to make me redshirt one year, and I just said, I ain't got time for this after playing a little bit. And I said, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be a pro football player. I've got some other things to do. Mickey Curran out of Compton, they'd always let him score the first downs and get the yardage, take him out and put in a couple of deadbeat white boys who couldn't even get to the line, let alone get through it, because our coach was from Tennessee, and he was a right-out racist. So actually, they had more black folk playing football in 1936 than they did in 1966 at UCLA. By the way, activist Jackie Robinson was the halfback on that football team. He was first brother to play in the Major League Baseball thing, but guess what? He never played baseball before being a pro. He ran track. He was an all-American football player. He held the American record in the 100-yard and the 220. Okay. You had Don Barksdale, who was a wide receiver in that backfield. He became the first brother to play in the NBA. He played with the Lakers. But he never played basketball. He ran track. He ran the high hurdles. He had Kenny Washington, who was a quarterback and had such racist fallout on that UCLA permanently changed that position to being called a tailback. And he was the first brother to play in the NFL. He played for the Rams. So, yeah, that was a hell of a backfield. They had 2 big brothers on the line, too. So there were more black folk playing football in 1936 than in 1966. So things changed. By the way, speaking of stuff about black athletes, Jackie Robinson. People talked about him in later years, but he was talking about those who were not behaving as men, because guess what? The first person to not go to the back of the bus was not Rosa Parks. It was in 1943. Jackie Robinson took a taxi home with his fellow officer's wife because he was being relieved as officer of the day, and the woman's husband was coming on as night officer. So Jackie Robinson took a cab home with her. Then he decided to take the bus back to base to save money. So they told him to move to the back of the bus. In his court martial, the testimony was he pulled his 45 out, racked around into the chamber, and with the hammer back, safety off, he said, some MF is going to die tonight besides me. He had Texas Rangers out there, Texas police, and MPs. So they court-martialed him. He was acquitted. And he decided to resign because he had hurt his ankle, and he waived that so he could be an officer. He was a captain in the Army. So the men said, why don't you go down with the colored leagues, Negro leagues? He said, well, I've never played baseball. So, well, yeah, Captain, but, you know, you're the fastest man in America. Can't nobody beat you from one base to another. And when you get up to bat, everybody backs up 15 yards. So why don't you try? And the rest was history. But you see, that's something we don't know. Another little tidbit. Chuck Connors, the rifleman, blonde hair, blue eyed guy. I didn't know anything about him until Don Newcomb, who was 17 years old that the Dodgers hired at the same time as Robinson, but he stayed in the minors. Great, one of the greatest pitchers of all time.
Yeah.
He said Jackie had a temper that everybody tried to watch because he'd bust somebody in the mouth in a minute. So some pitcher tried to hit him, bean him, missed one pitch, missed the second, hit him with the third. Jackie starts out to the mound, so they don't want an incident. So Chuck Connors runs out there and busts the white pitcher right in the mouth and knocks him out and gets thrown out of the game. So the rest of his career, he kind of became Jackie Robinson's bodyguard. See, you don't know about people if all you listen to is the popular version. So the question that you asked me was I finding it unusual that a black athlete was politically active? No. Back in the 60s, a lot of them were active, even the pros, including some white folk. So that's what they're supposed to do. They had the idea that we're role models. People are looking up to us, so we have to do the same things that, you know, the popular mythos puts into the minds of the boys. Look up to somebody, he's supposed to be a hero. And if all you're doing is playing ball and getting paid a whole lot of money for it, you're just doing what a lot of people did for sport, and you get paid for it. So act like a man. That's why they used to be the first to sign up for a war. They were always upholding on the field and off the field. You don't get any badder ass than Jim Brown.
Oh, yeah. Well, you think what it is also that they were closer to the average working person in America, working class person?
Yes.
They were millionaires back then. They had to get summer jobs sometimes and other jobs.
Yes.
So that makes a difference that they're better connected. Like, you know, I'm looking at Kwame. He cuts his own grass. He's a millionaire, and he's a down south guy, got a tractor. The way he talk is very plain, but it's very direct, and there's a lot of substance to what he's saying. And I'm thinking to myself, he's the guy that people want to call Kaepernick to be, who's just unusually quiet, or what Nick Cannon was supposed to be. You remember Nick Cannon, the entertainer, who had the back pedal? You know, but he's that guy. I think he's the truth, the real deal.
I spoke on it about that. I said, look, Kaepernick had the opportunity to become the young black leader, but he blew it because he was so focused on what he was doing, taking a knee to protest Black Lives Matter. He lost track of the big picture. Kwame and you, see, you are doing something else. You're not just talking about I'm taking a knee to protest police brutality. You are spreading the word of the truth, and the truth will set you free. The lie, if told often enough, can become the truth for many, but the implacable foe of the lie is the truth, and the truth will set you free. Do not stint on speaking the truth, and that's what they need, young man. You, Kwame, some other people I can think of, and they need to be tomorrow's leaders because you think. You are not just going along with the flow, and you're also trying to acquire knowledge from those who have gone before. I really appreciated what you did with Dick Gregory.
Yes, sir.
You put that old brother's word out there. So he had a lot to say. I mean, I don't know if you ever got to have him expound on stuff like back in Selma when this head of the state police, state troopers, rode his horse into the assembly room where the black folk were planning the civil rights and started waving his nightstick and started talking about, I'm going to get all you ends and I'm going to knock the grease off of you and everything else. And he started laughing, and he told this other story about how Bull Connor type got out there. Bull Connor got out there and got to cussing out his men, talking about you let these ends embarrass you. What the hell's wrong with you? You're afraid of letting these ends whip your ass, blah, blah, blah. And he started taking a horse whip and beating on his own men, talking about, don't let them in, treat you, embarrass you like that. You the white man, what's wrong with you? So he had some stories that I feel privileged to have been able to hear from the source.
I'd say you and Judge, you and Dick Gregory have this in common: the ability to talk y'all truths, to call people out, and still be loved by the people at the same time. Still be able to walk in those circles and go in and out. But I mean, just to really get the love from the people, because I know I get emails every blue moon about you helping people out when you was a judge sitting on the bench, and people say you saved them. Like I sent you an email recently of a guy who said back in the 90s you saved his life and turned him around. And it's funny that it still resonates with people. People don't forget.
Well, see, you know what? When you sit on that damn bench, you're not supposed to be about the business of just locking folk up, though you may have to. You are the village chieftain. And one of the functions of the village chieftain is order in the village. So you have to make the decisions. It's up to you to judge. That's your job. And you got to resolve these citizen disputes. And then you have to resolve the disputes that come up when somebody's saying you weren't acting right, so you broke the public peace, dignity, and order. And then you say, well, I could lock this dude up, throw away the key, or I could put the key in his pocket if he does what I am going to coerce his dumb behind into doing, so he becomes a productive man. So he's worried about public order rather than trying to deal with breaking it.
And then you hiding the contradiction. You look at somebody like Mrs. Imhoff, Kamala. She made her bones by locking up black folk, by throwing away the key.
Offer any remedies.
Right. Career prosecutor. Now vice president. There's a heartbeat away from the Oval Office.
Well, they're going to have, I think they're setting Biden up so he can gracefully retire due to old age. And come Queen Harris Imhoff, Mrs., will be president of the United States, and under operation of the 20th Amendment, Nanny Pelosi, will become vice president. That ought to make you feel like I don't want lunch today, because I don't think I can hold it down.
I mean, but it's despicable though. I look at Kwame, I started paying attention to him around May 19th. That was Malcolm's birthday, Malcolm X's birthday. And Malcolm was 39. You say he didn't get a chance to enjoy his full manhood and prime. Kwame's 39 right now. And he's exhibiting that strength right now as a man.
See, we wouldn't have had a Malcolm or a Martin if it weren't a time and place that made that viable. You see, a lot of these preachers just didn't have the nerve to go do this, and they didn't have command of the English language, but Martin could speak well, Malcolm could speak well, so they kind of got drafted to be the spokesman for a cause, all right? They were too young to lead it because they had an insufficient knowledge. So I remember well when I was 39, and I remember all these years later and what I've learned. I may not be as good as I used to be, but most of the time I'm better than I ever was, ladies. But anyway, there is that. So, we have to understand that there's a new time, and there's some of us who were still around who saw it as it was starting off again, and then saw it put on the back burner. So now that the heat is turning back up, we have some clues. And there's a thing about leadership. Why don't some of you old guys step down? No, you don't. You see, you don't give away leadership.
Right.
Leadership has to be taken. So when the young bull can overthrow the old bull, then he becomes herd bull. And until then, it ain't happening. Unless the herd bull just says, well, I'm tired. I'm going to withdraw because this guy's shown that as an old bull, he'll guide the herd with me tagging along so we don't go over a cliff.
It's like I keep on thinking to the mob references. I think about Frank Costello, the prime minister of the mob, how he got attacked by Vincent the Chin Gigante, who was Vito Genovese's bodyguard and driver. Even though he didn't kill him, when he went to court, he didn't identify him either. And I think Vincent said, "Thanks, Frank." And Frank retired. He gracefully bowed out after almost losing his life. He said, "Okay, these guys, okay, I'm gonna bow out now." And he lived to be an old man. So I'm saying, like, you know, I'm just tired of hearing a lot about my people from my generation and others complaining about the so-called old people being in the way. I think that's a cowardice move and statement to say that old folks are in your way, so-called old people. Well, you don't have the balls to do what you gotta do. Mm-hmm.
Not you, but to them, I said, get your funky ass together, get your shit together, and show what you got.
Right.
Quit whining. Life is not shit about shit. It is doing shit or becoming shit because something ate you and shit you out wherever they shit. Now, there are no goddamn participation ribbons. There are no damn entitlements when it comes to leadership. There is putting your ass out front and saying, follow me if you dare.
Yeah, you telling the truth, Judge. I think it's tough love. And I think sometimes people, like I told Kwame when I talked to him for a little bit, it's not about the messenger, it's about the message. You can always find fault with the messenger. Your mailman could be a crackhead, but aren't you getting your mail delivered? Is you getting your mail on time delivered? Don't worry about the mailman's a crackhead or degenerate. That ain't the point. Focus on the mail that you're supposed to receive the message. And I think black folks, we get so emotionally attached to these people that form a cult of personality because anything can happen at any given time. But
people want a purpose. They want to be part of something. And part of that process can be sidetracked into hero worship, which is not bad when you have a real live hero, because that makes you want to emulate the things or copy the things, do the things that the hero does, so you too can carry out your childhood fantasies of being a hero.
Right.
But today, too many of the celebrities are celebrities because they fake it and they aren't really heroes. See, a basketball player can be a hero, but too often when we think of it, wow, what a heroic play. Have you ever seen anything like it? With 3 seconds left in the game and behind by 2, he sank a 3-pointer. Have you ever seen any heroics like that? That's not a hero. Damn. See, we look at celebrity stuff like that, and we've heard it too often. You got to be a football hero if you want to be with the beautiful girl.
Right.
Now they look at you strange. He's a male chauvinist pig. Hashtag me too. You know, I want one of those nice little sweet boys until you get one, and you don't want that. See, and by the way, guys, don't believe a thing these women say when they want someone, guy in touch with his feminine side. They talk that mess, but they don't want it. They want you to understand when they're crying, but no, they say that. What they want you to do, solve the problem and take care of them.
Right.
Now, you can pat them on the back, but see, we do that in our politics. We want our politicians to come down to the scene. Why didn't he go there? Well, he can't do a goddamn thing. 12 hours it takes him to go there and come back. At 12 hours, he ought to be at his desk working on the problem. But we want somebody to pat us on the back of the hand. There, it'll be all right, lying dog, because you set it up to be it bad anyway, you know.
Right.
Anyway, man, I got some stuff I have to do. I need to take a shower. I was trying to get some exercise, and I
appreciate you. I thought you go. Hey, I'm ready for 3 more hours. Cause I know you could go, man. I didn't get the stuff that you take. Is that the barbecue sauce? Is the secret in the sauce?
Oh yes, you reminded me.
Yes, sir.
Judge Joe Brown's barbecue. We have seasoning. We have sauces, 3 kinds.
Yes, sir.
Yes. We have regular. we've got OG, and we've got Hot. And I can see the real Dana talking about I want a man with a big bank account too.
I call her Jersey Red, Judge. Jersey Red,
Yeah.
she's hot, boy. She's a hot tamale.
Yeah, I know she is. She's hot. So we've got seasoning sauces. We've got a barbecue chicken link thing that we do, which is packed for us by the only USDA licensed black facility in the state of California. We've got a line we're going to do with this, what do they call it? Beyond Meat stuff to make links and patties with. We've got recipes for you for ribs, shoulder, brisket, all kinds of stuff. We've got a video we did, a cooking thing. We'll show you how to do greens like even your grandmama would want.
Hey, Judge, your power got knocked. Okay, you can't. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, are you now? Okay. There's
all right.
Mercury retrograde going on.
We'll show you how to do greens and pick them quickly and not do them slow like grandmama who wanted the opportunity and excuse to chat. We have coleslaw that uses our seasonings, baked beans that we use the stuff on. And if you ever in Los Angeles and you want to sample it from Chef Damon, he does stuff for the celebrities. He has a place down in the hood where you can get the best barbecue in Los Angeles, some of the best in the country. It's called D's Original Takeout Grill. It doesn't even mention barbecue. So Chef Damon is one hell of a brother. He was a computer man, and somebody said, why don't you try cooking? And it's good. And you can get it online. It's not active yet, but the website will be jjbbbq.com, Judge Joe Brown Barbecue. And it's going to be up and running in a couple of weeks. And so far, we've been told we'll be doing it with Kroger, Walmart, and Anderton's around the country. So depending upon where you live and what happens, please buy it. You'll love it. So, yeah, there is that. I forgot all about that. You know, and there's some other things too. Slow barbecue cooking. And I've got some stuff that we're working on a patent for some of the stuff. So, yeah, I'll keep that under hat until it comes out. Or at least until the patent is no longer applied for, but is granted or at least applied for. So, yeah, we've got that. And don't forget, JJB in 23.
JJB in 23. Y'all ain't ready, but y'all better get ready. And brand new day.
No, I'm not anti-gay, but I'm anti-imposing a cult thing on the people. I'm not anti-Republican because some Republicans are good and a lot of people are going over there after they are tired of the Democratic Party, all of whom are not bad, but a lot of them are. And I don't like anybody who is against the destruction of manhood, womanhood, and childhood. I will tolerate them if it's required to be fair and impartial. Otherwise, I'll do my damnedest to put the family back up on top, to put decency and respect back on top, to put dignity and public order on top, to get us in a position so we won't be hollering about 15 an hour minimum wage, but we'll be talking about whether the contract should be signed for $68.17 an hour or $72.14 per hour.
Wow.
And the police will respect the citizenry because the citizenry will directly control the police. And every low-down scoundrel that's been taking a bribe, a benefit under the table, I'm going to see if I can put them in jail.
I want to get your thoughts. I mean, I just want to ask this right quick. Are black people on a group of people that elevate their victims over their heroes? or sheroes or heroes. I think about the George Floyd bill, no disrespect to the dead, proposed. I mean, it's like every time we don't talk about people that fought back and actually did amazing things, but United States under their killers.
May
America
I
loves his
give an
killers.
old man's perspective on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Black pride perspective.
Yeah.
What about all of these black people, black men that have been shot down? Like that brother that had a CCW, didn't pull anything out, he just handed the guy his license and said, yeah, I got a CCW.
Yeah,
The
Philando
cop
Castile.
out and shot him.
Yeah.
Castile.
Mhm.
What about the brother that was trying to flag down a cop so he could get help with a flat tire, and this coward woman that was a lady cop down in Oklahoma City shot him down?
Mhm.
What about all of that? But now we got a 6'7", 250-pound black man who had almost a fatal dose of fentanyl in his system, who wants to struggle with the cop to resist arrest. A 5'8" going on 5'9", 135-pound white man put this 6'7", 250-pound Negro down on the ground and killed him without using any weapons. And that's embarrassing. Negro, you got your ass kicked. Now, that's one. Second thing, in my half century of being involved in this law business, there's only one single U.S. law that's not a private act that mentions anybody black. That's Martin Luther King's holiday.
Mhm.
There is nothing else that uses the words colored. There's nothing else that uses the word Negro. There's nothing else that uses the word Afro-American, African-American, or black in the history of the United States. So you're going to name the crime police reform bill after a dead black junkie? How do you explain that 50 years from now to some children that are studying it? Teacher, why did they name it after somebody that was ODing? Why didn't they name it after all these other people? Why don't you just not name it after one of us because you are Nancy Pelosi trying to pander to keep the colored folk running back to the jackass party because too many won't get off the plantation and become independent? See, how about if you want to talk about reform, Justice Reform Act, let's name it after Justice Thurgood Marshall. How about in memory of Malcolm X? How about Huey Newton? How about John Hugins, Bunchy Carter? All of these folk that got gunned down. Emmett Till. Those are just the more notorious ones. How about just not naming it after that person that puts a cloud over us and just say police reform? But that's not really what it is. It actually gives them more power and authority. And it also gives the government the opportunity to oppress the exercise of the Bill of Rights.
I know. Also, you think about this Memorial Day, right? Why not name it after somebody like Samuel Young Jr.? Samuel Young Jr. He went to Tuskegee. I think he was enlisted in the Navy, and he was murdered for trying to desegregate a restroom down there.
Why not?
I think he was the first black college student killed in the civil rights movement.
Why not?
Samuel Young Jr.
Why not? See, because it's propaganda. What you do, classic propaganda, what you do is you pick something that your target thinks is recognition, but you put something negative in the recognition, so some years later, it turns into a slur rather than a compliment.
And so, Judge, how can we find you again? Like, how can we locate you on social media?
You can find me at Judge Joe Brown TV on Twitter. They try to block me all the time. You can find me on Parler at Judge Joe Brown. You can find me on Friday on the Judge Joe Brown radio show. You can call in, hit 1 if you want, get in the K. You can find me sometimes coming through you. You can find me with uh, Dana,
Mm-hmm.
the real Dana. You can find me with Bernard Johnson. You can find me a number of places, and I'm having Kwame Brown on next week, so you might want to check that out to see where that goes.
I'm looking forward. Always good to see real man meet and cut it up and chop
We
it
ought
up.
to have you on there too. You join in a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I do join in. It's so many. It's like I just like listening though a lot of times because so much information being thrown out there. I like to talk as well, but I like listening to other people like yourself and others who got a lot to offer as well too. I know a brother typed in. I know you because you talk all the time about this stuff. But somebody, I mean, we like you, Grandmaster J, the InFact people. You have any thoughts about them right now? Where we at since things went down? I mean, I don't know why people. We got to stop this. I don't really. No disrespect to him. I don't watch sports right now. It's not that exciting. I'd rather have dialogue like this and do things. I think talk is cheap. Action is even better. You speak with your actions. Yeah, and taking care of your neighborhood. Don't worry about what's going on overseas. Y'all worry about the Palestinians, all this. What about what's going on in North Memphis or South Memphis or where you at? Why we can't take care of home?
Yeah,
You got folks starving for knowledge in your own backyard.
Our streets are much more exciting than anything you're going to see on TV. I
Yeah,
get some excitement. I want to actually tamp it down a little bit. It's getting too exciting.
Yes, sir.
And the freaks don't come out at night. They come out all day long now. If I'd make a suggestion, I'd take very immediate advantage of this new law Tennessee has. If you're eligible to buy a pistol, you can carry it without a permit. I'd do so. Because nobody can protect you from some fool. Now, I would get a permit just for other purposes because Tennessee has reciprocity with most other states. So if you can carry here, you can carry there, vice versa. And it looks good if somebody tried to sue you, and you might learn something if you took some courses or read up on it and have some common sense. Now, one of the things I would say is common sense. If you're going to do that, it's always loaded. Never treat a weapon like it's unloaded, even if it is. That way you'll have no accidents that you will regret.
That's right.
Now, the other thing is have some good sense. And I'll tell you a point. If you aren't out for mischief, armed people tend to be more polite than people who aren't because of the consequences of discourtesy.
Right.
Lord Toranaga. Lord Bullington, is this to your satisfaction, sir? Partner, is you trying to say something slanderous here, or am I taking it wrong? See, courtesy is great.
And closing thought, you have any thoughts about the Black Wall Street commemorations going on this weekend?
Yes, they should have armed themselves.
Now, they were armed to protect that.
They should have armed themselves.
Okay.
Better.
Okay. But you had brothers did come to the courthouse to protect that.
But here's what I'm saying. When you know you're doing this, conduct some patrols. Don't get overconfident and just wait for it to come to you. You can only get lynched one time. So you might as well get lynched for the right kind of stuff because you don't have to do anything except be a success to provoke a lynching. But so it was tragic. It's just one of those things that has to happen. There are a lot of these massacres. The white boys that went and started the revolution, they had some lynchings in their background. They used to have lynchings for white folk. They had these things in Old England. Look at the Sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood, Lord Locksley. You see, this goes on. It ain't nothing new.
Yeah, I went down the Tulsa the first weekend of this month, and I talked to people, some of the descendants of the survivors, and I heard from elders that the planes that were used to bomb Black Wall Street belonged to Black people, that the white folks took those planes. Some of them could admit to it, but other people said it happened.
Yeah,
So it was like at
that's
least
what I'm
6
saying.
airplanes owned by
Watch
black
your
people.
back.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't all about a front or making money. I keep telling people it's not just about money.
Mm-hmm.
And not just about having a weapon or a firearm. It's the mindset that goes along with it. Okay, one other thing somebody's saying, support young King Randall with his school in Georgia.
Okay. What's
You
your
know
thoughts
who
on
he
that?
is?
Oh, I'm familiar. I see how Roland Martin tried to do him dirty, but
Yeah, well,
push back on that.
yeah, young King Randall is a 21-year-old black man who said we need better out of education. So he got the school together, organizing the 15, 16-year-olds to raise the money to open it. So now they're catching hell from the powers that be about the temerity of opening up a black school when you're young and trying to do what you do. And Roland Martin,
I know you had him on your show, on one of your podcasts back, when you were doing your other show. They made an appearance on there.
They did?
Yeah, but one of the show that I guess it can get picked up, like when you were doing your TP project a year or so ago.
What that was
Larry Elder.
Something else.
Okay.
Larry Elder you're talking about. Larry Elder's an interesting person. That's how he earns his living, putting what out he puts out. But if you want to see what he's about, start talking about black manhood, and that all changes around. Gets real interesting. We had that with Larry Elder on there, and we had a stand-up comedian, Aida Rodriguez. She's got a Hispanic name, and she's classified as a Hispanic because she's from Puerto Rico, but she looks like a beautiful black woman, and she sounds like one. And he got into it until he started talking about manhood. I just flipped the script around to talk about that, and he went off on a totally different angle than what you would expect. You'd be surprised. He gets his kudos for getting that so-called accommodationist black thing, but they never ask him about manhood. But when they ask him about manhood, then he comes up and across like he should.
And also, speaking of manhood, you did a great job on that buck breaking documentary with Tariq Nasheed. So how was that process to you? What's your thoughts about that, if any?
Well, thank you, but I'd forgotten all about it. So somebody told me everybody wants the old man to talk.
Yeah, the old man got a lot
to
say. The old man got a lot to say.
We don't have any black elders out there hardly. You see what I'm saying? And especially not on the national level with an audience. Can you think of any?
Not
Gregory was, but who?
You got a lot of olders, not elders. I call them olders, but not elders.
But even then, how many of them say anything?
Not too much. But we need them to say anything. They don't say, because even you look at the eviction moratorium is coming up. A lot of black folks are about to get kicked out of their apartments and homes, and I don't see no black leadership nationally talking about we're going to take care of our people or the American people in general. So that's very disheartening to know. They can speak on Trump though, but they can't speak on black folks struggling. Especially they just got an anti-racism bill passed for Asians. But we've been catching, look, the centennial weekend of Black Wall Street. Where's the anti-racism bill for black people?
Speaking of stuff, do you know who was chairman of the subcommittee that wrote that?
Steve Cohen.
9th District, Memphis, Tennessee.
Chocolate District.
That clown has been in for how many terms? And prior to this, his outstanding piece of legislative activity was a binding resolution requiring the use of paper straws in the congressional cafeteria.
Wow.
What has he done for his black constituents? Not one damn thing.
But a lot of us don't expect anything out of these so-called politicians except to show up for our events and give us proclamations and a pat on the head.
He doesn't even show up.
On the yeah, that's about it. I mean, we don't expect any. Cause I think it's interesting. You talk about Cohen's dealings, then you look at the fact he showed up with Al Gore at the protest for the Bahia pipeline a couple of months back. Like he's in
But
agreement
then
with
you
the people.
find out that he got some stock from the people who were pushing that pipeline that has gone up in value. That's what I was telling you about, that thing about the gas in California.
Mm-hmm.
See,
so these people, I don't
smoke
know, man.
screen, confusion, muddying the water, you know. And how did he get in there anyway? Well, when A.L.L. Ford Jr. resigned to run for senator, U.S. senator, there were 14 black folk, or was it 12 in that race?
It was too many. It was too many in the
Yeah,
case.
and he won the
Yeah,
primary. Is the only one of him in there. And since then, you know, we have had this mess going on with these election machines in Memphis, Shelby County until these clowns got sued on the county commission. And then they spent the money the feds had put up in 2008 to get new machines. But for 4 election cycles, they've been sitting up in a warehouse. And for Memphis, they've been using the corrupted, hacked machines. Okay, now, what's happening at the border? Somebody said that?
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. I spent my career either defending people against accusations that they broke the law or presiding over the issue of whether or not they broke the law. And I don't see why anybody should be rewarded for breaking the law. My ex-wife and I were coming back into the United States after traveling abroad. We went through Miami Airport, and there's a certain group that works there that likes to make life miserable for everybody. So when you go into U.S. Customs, when you get off the aircraft in Miami Airport, there will be a counter you will eventually get to. And to the left of the counter as you face it, there is a narrow stairway that goes up to the floor below. And these characters are fond of telling American citizens to go up that stairway. If you do follow their instructions, this big klaxon alarm goes off. Well, I knew better. My ex-wife did. And we didn't go up there. They're trying to bamboozle us into doing it. This young white couple did. They went up there. The klaxons went off. Ice came up, slammed him up against the wall, threw an out forearm in the back of his neck, jacked him up, threw his woman down on the floor. She had on a little short sundress, and she didn't have anything but a thong bottom on, and all her cheeks, everybody's looking at her. And somebody literally put a foot on her back until the rest of us got down, were yelling up, "This guy told us." And then the supervisor came up and he was saying, "Have not told you to not do this." And, you know, they just laughed about it. But if you can jack American citizens up with passports at their own damn border, how the hell are you letting somebody else get through? And then don't forget, 11,000 folk who were sex offenders were released. This administration has got a thing where they're paying $242,000 a year to house each of a whole bunch of illegal families of 4. Wouldn't you like that money put in your pocket as an American?
Yeah.
Student loans, we talked about that. Wouldn't you like some forgiveness?
Yes, sir.
In terms of, hey, why are you giving these billions of dollars? We don't have enough jobs to go around right now, so you want to crowd the market more? You know, all these people out of work for COVID-19, and you want to bring in some more people, and what is it, $1,400 a month? What the hell are you going to do with $1,400 a month? Maybe some people need it, but that ain't much.
Yes.
$1,400 a month is what? $14,400 plus another $1,440. So Well, how you gonna live off of that? 15. What are you gonna live off of? That's way below the poverty line.
Yep. Make you want to holler,
They give
man.
it away at the border.
Oh my God.
I don't have anything against Hispanics. Some of them are wonderful people. Some of them are my friends. There I go. Some of my best friends are Negroes, but you know, we can say that too. But the bottom line is obey the damn law. And plus, I'm still trying to figure out how that woman, CB, winds up being an American citizen, and she's a street walking prostitute by her own confession, and commits the felony of robbery by drugging her tricks, or did.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it goes wrong.
Wow. Well, Judge, I know I'm gonna be respectful of your time. You are the man of the hour, and you are in demand, even more so now, because the Man Up movement is gaining momentum and steam. And I know the best is yet to come. So thank you, Judge Joe Brown, always for being who you are, for being a true public servant of the people, and for telling it like it is. We love you,
I can't
madly.
help it. I like to cause trouble. It gives me pleasure to watch all of the ants scurry around and all of them hollering and whining.
Oh, we love you, madly. Keep on doing what you're doing, Judge. And JJB in 2023.
And I'm JJB
in 2023.
2023. Thank
Yes,
you, young
sir.
man.
Thank
Always
you.
A pleasure.
Pleasure is truly mine. Go both ways, Judge. Appreciate it.
All right.
So that was Judge, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all really want to hear Judge was in the house. Judge was in the house. Judge in the house. He was in the house. Thank you all. I know some of y'all first-time listeners as well, and y'all came on the stream for the Judge, and the Judge is in the house, and he's running for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, JJB in 2023. So thank you all. Like I said, this is the weekend, the centennial weekend, a commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. Now, I know Judge said black man should have armed it. They were armed. Them brothers saved that brother life. Dick Rowland, who the newspapers called Diamond Dick. You know, he supposed to be a shoe shine boy, but they call him Diamond Dick. You know, I don't know whether that was his real nickname, but he was a high school student at one point at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa. And they came down to the courthouse to preserve that brother's life. Black men, World War I veterans with their guns drawn to protect one black man or a young black male, whatever you want to call him. I think he was 19 or 18 at the time. So I feel that he survived that horrible Holocaust massacre of his people. I heard stories, because I think if the white folks actually killed brother Dick Rowland, they would have let people know that they killed that brother. And so you had black men that were armed. And I'll tell people, since y'all here, so many of y'all here, please go to a PBS website and look at the documentary going back to T-Town. That's about the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, produced by black people for the PBS American Experience series. It came out in 1993. So it's under an hour long, but it is worth watching, because the people that are interviewed are the actual survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. You had actual black business owners who were interviewed, as well as children who survived that horrible thing. And to hear from their perspective is very empowering and enriching and invigorating. And I say all this to say also what people don't know, that after that race massacre did happen back in 1921, that the black Tulsans rebuilt Greenwood. They came back strong and prosperous. They was the most influential, most well-known business district for black people in the 1930s. This is during the Great Depression. So Black Wall Street was thriving even during the Great Depression. And what finally did Black Wall Street in was not the white lynch mob, but gentrification and the end of Jim Crow. And they put that big expressway through the Greenwood community. So we will be doing a show or two about Black Wall Street in the oncoming days, because the actual incident happened May 31st through June the 1st, 1921. So if you are interested in hearing about those stories that we want to talk about on this platform, please feel free to join us for these shows, because I pride myself on creating the narrative for our people to counteract the official story. Like I said, for all its faults, the American Red Cross was honest about the possible casualties from their horrific race massacre, because they said at least 300 Black people were killed, thousands were left homeless, and no Black person that had a business or home in Greenwood got 1 red cent from their insurance companies to recoup their losses. Did not get 1 red cent to recoup their losses. And also, the great historian, Dr. John Hope Franklin, his father was a lawyer who was a victim of Black Wall Street, but he saved Black Greenwood from being wiped away because he took it to court to protect the rights of the Black Tulsans who made Greenwood their home as well as their business home. So B.C. Franklin, shout out to that righteous ancestor, who is the father of Dr. John Hope Franklin, who saved Black Wall Street so they could have a rebuild and a renaissance. So check out Going Back to T-Town, which is located on a PBS website, part of their American Experience series. It's worth watching. It's only under an hour. And also, y'all want to Google up ABC Soul of a Nation. They did a several-part series on the Tulsa Race Massacre. It's available in podcast form. You could go to, I guess, iTunes or Apple's, wherever those podcast programs or platforms are located. It's worth listening to because it talks about them doing some forensic research in Oak Lawn Cemetery in Tulsa. Oak Lawn Cemetery in Tulsa, they say there's a mass grave burial of the victims of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Me and my sister, my biological sister, Mo Thomas, I know Cindy, we went down there to investigate. We found the Potter's Field where the alleged mass grave is located. And I'm gonna talk about it in the upcoming show. They are buried there. I felt it in my bones because first you had 2 known victims that were buried with tombstone markers. It's 2 brothers who got killed on June 1st, 1921. They're buried right next to the Potter's Field, but they've been identified. But there's a big tree growing out the ground. It's a very majestic, large tree growing out the ground of that Potter's Field. If you look at that tree, I know I got a weird way of seeing the world. Like Dick Gregory said, once you put the magic glasses on, you could never take them off or make anybody else see what you see. There are markers in the tree that look like people's faces in the tree. It's like people trapped in the tree. Like their spirit is trapped in the tree. And I took photos and stuff of it. I'll share it on that show. But it just like, yeah, they buried here. It's like we went to the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi. And it was amazing because they said in the Devil's Punch Bowl, over 20,000 Black folks were killed and left in a pit near the Mississippi River to die and rot. And that there are wild peach orchids down there growing from the spot where them Black folks are buried. And so we went there as well. We didn't go into the actual pit of the Devil's Punch Bowl, but we went atop the bluff overlooking the Mississippi River and the Devil's Punch Bowl. You can feel the energy of our people in that place too. If you're new to this channel, we do a lot more than just interview like the Judge Joe Brownses and the Baba Dick Gregory's. These are great men, but also we tell the hidden stories and hidden gems of our people from our own perspectives. And so-called Black people, I know some of y'all say we're not Black. It's not about that. It's about the fact that when Black folks get taken advantage of, who has Black folks' backs? What entity or sovereign entity has a Black person's back? Because even you talk about the anti-Asian racism bill, whatever you want to talk about, anti-Asian hate, whatever they call it, when Chinese immigrants used to come to America to help build the railroads and stuff like that, if they were lynched back in the day, if the Chinese immigrant was lynched back in the day, the United States government had to pay reparations to China. If Italian immigrants were lynched in America, the United States government had to pay reparations to Italy. When Black Americans are lynched in America, where is the entity that helped the Black people back, the so-called Black person or Black people back to get or receive reparations on our behalf? to make sure that our grievance in some type of way is compensated. That was Malcolm's goal, to go to Africa to get sovereign entity backup for Black people in America, to make sure that our grievances here, the so-called Black people, were addressed. That's why he was a threat, because you had Black ambassadors and diplomats quoting Malcolm X on the floor of the United Nations. Malcolm's goal was to bring up the United States of America on charges of human rights violations against the so-called Black people of America, of the United States. He was working with a Kenyan freedom fighter named Pinto, who was an Indian. He was working with Pinto. Look him up. Because after they killed Malcolm in front of his family in the Audubon Ballroom back on February 21st, 1965, they killed Pinto in Kenya in front of his daughter. Just a couple of days later, I think February 24th, 1965. He was like Malcolm in his late 30s. This is why it's interesting to see this brother Kwame Brown and his rise, because it's interesting that he, I became more aware of him during Malcolm X's birthday, which is May 19th. We also lost Paul Mooney on May 19th. And so he is the same age as Malcolm when he was killed in front of his family at 39. So he on the cusp of the prime of his manhood. He's about to go into his manhood prime. So it seems like the brother is sincere, that he means well, that he loves Black people, that he loves protecting and the preservation of the Black family, and also for the Black man to take his rightful place at the helm of the Black family. Because people talking about they being oppressed by Black male patriarchy. We have not been allowed to have a patriarchy in our community, in our so-called community. The patriarchy they talking about is the white man's patriarchy. That's the only one that matters in his system. No such thing as no Black male patriarchy. But now is the time for Black men to rise up and take our rightful places and to represent and protect our Black manhood by any means necessary. So thank you all for listening. So I have your ear, but come back on, subscribe, get up to 100,000 subscribers. Be nice. Thank you. You are most deaf welcome. We love you madly. There's so many comments in here, but we're about to shut it down. I think thank you, O'Donna. We love you madly. I got to get you back on the show. Really enjoyed spending time with you on the platform and on your platform. Check her out. O'Donna got some great interviews, podcasts. She did a great one, Dr. Phil Valentine. So try to find O'Donna on YouTube. She don't really got a URL that got her name in it. I would like for her to get a personalized URL so it make it easier for people to, get in touch with her. But she got some great stuff. She's a very talented, I think she's a comedic genius, powerful skits and sketches. I mean, she should be prime time. Beautiful spirit, very talented woman. I know the best is yet to come for her. Thank you, O'Donnell. We love you madly. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm about to shut down, and thank everybody for the donations. I appreciate y'all. It's going to great, good places. We got a lot of great programming coming up in the very near future. A lot of great stuff that nobody else is really doing, because we've been doing new Black media for a while. I've been at this since 2007 in terms of podcasting and stuff like that. So I'm glad that I'm around still for the times, because the times are changing. And this is We All Be. And somebody said about Dick Gregory. He admit Dick Gregory, one thing, he was honest. He said he would never win Father of the Year. But absent father, he was actually a provider, but he wasn't at home all the time. And he didn't run from that fact. He said that his wife Lil raised the kids, and that the children are closer to his wife than they are to him. But like I had Dr. Christian Gregory on the show. This is the son of Dick Gregory, one of his 10 kids that survived to adulthood. Because actually Dick had 11 kids. He had a son named after him, a junior who died sudden infant death syndrome. He actually passed away while Dick was down in Jackson, Mississippi with the late great Medgar Evers. The late great Medgar Wiley Evers, who was assassinated June 12th, 1963, before his family in his driveway at the age of 37. Medgar Evers was the cat that inspired Dick Gregory to give his all into the movement. And so Medgar answered the phone when Lil called to notify Dick that his son passed on. And Dick wanted to stay down in Jackson, Mississippi to die with Medgar, because Medgar knew he was a marked man. Medgar knew his days were numbered, the way he was moving and stuff like that. But Medgar told Dick, go back to Chicago to be with your family. So Medgar drove Dick Gregory to the airport. And Dick knew in his heart and mind and spirit and bones that would be the last time he would see Medgar Evers alive, because he basically said, I came down to Mississippi to die with you, man. And this Dick Gregory was like, Dick Gregory was just 30 years. Well, yeah, Dick was born 32, Medgar 60. So I'm saying Dick was just 30 years young. And there's a interview available online of Dick Gregory talking about his experiences in Mississippi right before they killed Medgar, because he went back. He flew out of Mississippi to the West Coast to do a comedy show out in San Francisco, I believe. But he was interviewed on the radio about his experiences in Mississippi, talking about being there with Medgar Evers, talking about being beat up and arrested by the police in Greenwood. I'm gonna tell y'all something, because this is a learning moment. Because Dick Gregory don't get enough credit for a lot of things that he did do, because he wasn't looking for credit. He knew that he was not the leader of the movement. He was a supporter and an advocate for the movement. He helped raise money like Harry Belafonte for the movement, and he put himself on the front line for the movement. The reason why there was a Freedom Summer of 1964 is because Dick Gregory, when the federal government canceled the benefits of the black residents of Greenwood, Mississippi. See, you talking about what's going to happen, but they canceling all the extra stimulus money and all this stuff right now. Well, the government punished the black folks of Greenwood for trying to exercise their rights to vote. So they canceled their food stamps and all their benefits they were getting from the government. Dick Gregory, with the help of Hugh Hefner, Dick Gregory made it big time because he started doing the Playboy Club up in Chicago. And he was able to sit on the couch at the Tonight Show with Jack Parr, the one that eventually became more famous under, Johnny Carson, right? But Dick went to Hugh Hefner to help him charter a plane. He filled that plane up with all type of supplies and food, tons of supplies and food, and chartered that plane to Mississippi and deliver all that food to the people of Greenwood. That's one man that did that. Dick Gregory did that thing as one person movement. And Bob Moses, one of the architects and organizers of Mississippi Freedom Summer, Bob Moses is a brilliant mathematician and teacher from Harlem, New York, Ivy League educated, but he did a lot of activism down in Mississippi. He helped create what is now known as the Algebra Project. Y'all look up Bob Moses and the Algebra Project. He said that when they saw Dick Gregory did that inspired them to do what is now known as Freedom Summer, to help college students, black and white, go back down south to get black folks registered to vote and also teach them how to read and write in freedom schools. So Bobby Dick Gregory influenced that generation of young people to step out their comfort zone to serve. So Dick Gregory was not an absent father. What he was, because black men, we are the original fathers of humanity. We are the original teachers of civilization, along with the black woman. We the original parents of humanity. So yes, he sacrificed his family for the world, but in turn, his family got a good name and legacy to stand on. His family has a good name and legacy to stand on. Like, I interviewed Dr. Christian Gregory 2 Fridays ago. Check out the interview. Like, because of his father's, the reverence that people had for his father, and the stuff his father did to help a lot of people that he don't need credit for, he was able to connect with Marvin Gaye or Michael Jackson, or to help people like, prominent people visit their household. See, like he said, we were born with silver spoons. So Dick, he wasn't there all the time, but like what Baba Dick would say, even Hitler had a father. Even Hitler had a father. And what about the young fathers that would leave their families during times of war to die in a foreign land? Are they bad fathers for leaving their wife and children without, you know, a husband or a father. This is Memorial Day. Dr. King said, if a man ain't want to die for anything, he ain't fit to live. Dr. King got killed at 39. I'm right across the street right now from where Dr. King was murdered. He left a young family behind. But look at the legacy. Malcolm the same way. Look at the legacy. Dick was blessed that he was able to live twice as long as those guys. But, you know, I don't mean to go on too long like that, but it is what it is. And thank y'all once again for the donation. Now, he might be an agent, and so many people in here I don't know, but I look at these as teaching moments, man. These are teaching moments. And so with that said, I'm about to get out of here. We love you madly. Let me read a disclaimer. So many people in here. I just had to take advantage of the moment. But if you come back, we're going to do Black Wall Street sometime in the next couple of days. But disclaimer, the views expressed by hosts and guests on the We All Be TV platform are not the official views, opinions, beliefs, or perspectives of We All Be News or the We All Be Group Incorporated. We All Be News is an organization that thoroughly believes in supplementing the information narrative that is usually supplied by the corporate news entities with those viewpoints and expressions which may be marginalized or ignored for a plethora of reasons. We are about informing the general public on alternative perspectives as it relates to news and information, and letting the general public be the ultimate judge in deciding on how to use said information. Informed citizens are responsible citizens. Thank you for your support. And thank y'all. I'm losing my voice. I ain't do that much talking. Thank y'all so much for tuning in and tuning out, but yet tuning in with Brother Ron and We All Be. If you like the words from Brother Herb, please spread the word. Thank you, Sister Alexa Jones. Love you madly. No problem. I ain't gonna be able to read everything, but you can support us. You can support us by, you know, do the Cash App, $R2C2H2, or you the PayPal, Google Pay, or Zelle your support at R2C2H2@gmail.com. That's R2C2H2@gmail.com. You can Venmo your support at R2C2H2. And also, you can buy Artemis Art to Wear. Below this description box is our Teespring shelf. We got our official Teespring t-shirt store available. Buy stuff like this. This is my I Am a Nobody. The shirt under the legendary comedic genius Burt Williams. Burt Williams was Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor before there was an Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor. Look up Burt Williams. He's an amazing brother, comedic genius. Also, you can buy Art of His Art. All this work that you see back here, this is my artwork that I do. You can go to R2C2H2.com. That's R2C2H2.com. I'll update that shortly. But thank you all for tuning in and not necessarily always tuning out, but tuning out because in the words of MLK, human salvation lies in the hand of the creatively maladjusted. Once again, human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. Those are words from the late, great MLK. So we're going to close it out. Family, thank you so much. In the words of Great Duke Ellington, like I said, we love you madly. Y'all keep on producing and pushing. And to honor our ancestors, gonna bring it home and take it out. Bring it home and take it out. I'm closed out with my tribute. I went down to Tulsa the first weekend of May of this month. And gonna close it out with my tribute in the epicenter of what is known as Black Wall Street. I'm at the epicenter of the Black Wall Street race massacre, giving my salute to the righteous ancestors. And we're going to close it out. But please join us when we have a show coming up very soon to commemorate the centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre, the Black Wall Street Race Massacre. We're going to do that on this platform. Thank y'all so much for y'all support. And know that the best is yet to come. In the words of Duke Ellington, we love you madly. And I'll see y'all later. In the words of Marcus Garvey, look for me in the whirlwind. Be peaceful. One love.